The room went quiet in stages. First, Uncle Ray stopped sawing at his steak. Then my mother lowered her water glass without drinking. Finally, Owen looked at our father, although he'd spent most of the evening looking anywhere else. Dad still had one hand on Owen's shoulder. The other held a glass of Cabernet he'd been using like a conductor's baton through a 7-minute toast. "You're the soldier who quit," he said to me. "Tonight is about your brother." A server slipped through the door carrying a dish of creamed spinach, took one look at the room, and backed out again. "Cal," Mom said. It came out thin. Not a warning. More like she was checking whether he could still hear his own name. Dad smiled at me with sad patience, as though I'd forced him to say something regrettable, but necessary. Behind him, a framed cavalry print hung crooked over the restaurant fireplace. I had noticed it when we arrived. I noticed crooked things. I'd spent half my adult life noticing what could shift, spill, jam, collapse, or get somebody hurt. "Don't do this," Owen said. I couldn't tell which of us he meant. I took out my phone. Dad gave a small laugh. "What, are you calling somebody?" "No." I found the file. I had changed phones twice and carried it across both, though I had never played it for anyone. I set the phone beside his wine glass and pressed the triangle. His own voice filled the room. "Mara, it's Dad. Listen, don't sign anything, please. Your mother needs you. I need you." 4 years earlier, my father called me at 2:13 in the morning and hung up before I answered. At 2:14, he called again. I was stationed at Fort Carson then, living in a second-floor apartment with beige carpet, one stubborn window, and a refrigerator that made a sound like a distant helicopter every time the compressor kicked on. I woke on the first buzz and sat upright before the second. 11 years in the Army had trained several useful reactions into me. One was the ability to go from dead asleep to fully dressed in under 3 minutes. Another was the conviction that nobody called after midnight to improve your life. "Dad?" There was noise behind him. Wheels, a loudspeaker, somebody coughing. "Mara." He sounded offended by my name. I turned on the lamp. "Where are you?" "Hospital." I was already reaching for jeans. "Which hospital?" "Memorial." "Your mom had some kind of episode." "What kind?" "They don't know." "What happened?" "I just told you they don't know." My father got angry when he was frightened. He also got angry when restaurants charged for bread, when weather reports changed, and when appliances had buttons he didn't recognize. Context mattered. Is she conscious? They took her for a scan. Can she talk? She was talking. It wasn't making sense. I stopped with one leg in my jeans. Did her face droop? What? One side of her face? Did it droop? Yes, a little. I thought she was tired. How long between that and when you called 911? He didn't answer. "Dad." I had her sit down first. I got her some orange juice. I closed my eyes. "Okay, I'm going to call the nurse's station. Text me a picture of the bracelet or anything with her patient number. Why? Because they won't tell me anything without it. You're 3 states away." "Yes, I'm aware." That landed harder than I meant it to. He breathed into the phone, unsteady and loud. "I don't know what to do," he said. It was the first honest thing I'd heard from him in years. I sat on the edge of the bed. "You stay where they can find you. Don't leave to get coffee. Don't start calling everybody until the doctor tells you what happened. Text me the patient number." What about Owen? My younger brother was in Poland on a rotation. He was a major then, recently selected for an assignment Dad explained to people, even though he didn't understand it. "I'll call him after we know more." "No." Dad said it quickly. "Not yet. He's got that exercise. Mom may have had a stroke, and what can he do from Poland? The same thing I can do from Colorado. That's different." I almost asked how. Instead, I told him to send the number. By sunrise, the stroke had been confirmed. By lunch, I had emergency leave approved and a flight to North Carolina booked. At the airport, I bought a coffee that tasted like someone had dissolved a brown crayon in hot water. I drank all of it. My platoon sergeant, Ellis, not related, which disappointed everyone who enjoyed paperwork jokes, called while I was waiting to board. You need anything, Ellis? New parents? Supply doesn't stock those. I checked. Sergeant First Class Paula Ellis had been in the Army 18 years and believed sympathy worked best when disguised as sarcasm. They say the clot procedure went well, I told her. She's still having trouble on the right side. Speech is rough. How's your dad? Ordering nurses around. So, poorly. Yeah. There was a pause. Around me, people competed for position near the gate, even though the plane had assigned seats. You still doing the ceremony Friday? Paula asked. My re-enlistment ceremony had been scheduled for that week. 6 more years. The paperwork was prepared, the flag borrowed, and a captain I respected had agreed to administer the oath. I'd already complained about the cake Paula planned to buy, which meant I had been looking forward to it. I don't know, I said. We can move it. My dad thinks Mom's going to need help. Your dad thinks the toaster needs help. That toaster is a fire hazard. It makes bread hot. He's asking too much of it. I smiled despite myself. Paula's voice changed. Take the leave. See what's real. Don't decide your whole life in an airport. I'm not. You alphabetized your emergency contacts. That is not evidence of distress. It is when you only have 4. They called my boarding group. I have to go. Call when you land, she said. And Ellis? Yeah? Friday can move. I told her I knew. At Memorial, I found Dad standing at a vending machine with his wallet open. He'd put a $5 bill into the card slot and was furious that the machine had rejected it. You can run a warehouse in a war zone, he said, instead of hello. Get me some peanut crackers. He looked smaller than he had at Christmas. Not physically smaller, exactly. His shirt was buttoned wrong at the bottom, throwing the whole front sideways, and there was gray stubble along his jaw. My father shaved every morning before breakfast, including Sundays, and once during a hurricane. I bought the crackers, then fixed his shirt in the men's room doorway while he complained that I was making a scene. Mom was awake in intensive care. Denise Ellis had never entered any room casually. Even picking up dry cleaning, she wore lipstick and asked questions that made strangers tell her about their marriages. In the hospital bed, the right side of her mouth sagged. Her hair had been combed, but not by anyone who knew her. Someone had parted it in the center. Her eyes found me. Marmalade, she said. Dad flinched. Close enough, I told her. She started crying. Only half her face seemed able to do it, which was so unfair and strange that I nearly laughed. The laugh turned into something sharp behind my ribs. I took her left hand. I'm here. She squeezed once. Dad immediately began explaining the neurologist's explanation, getting most of it wrong. He said ischemic 3 different ways. He said the doctor had promised a full recovery. The doctor had promised no such thing. I listened until he ran out of confidence. Then I found the nurse, asked for the current medication list, confirmed the next imaging time, wrote down the names of everyone on the care team, and learned where Dad had parked. He had lost the ticket. Of course he had. For the first 2 days, I operated on coffee, vending machine almonds, and the belief that if I made a complete enough list, nothing else bad could happen. I booked Dad a room at the hotel across the street. He refused to use it, then slept there 6 hours and said it had been unnecessary. I called the insurance company. I found Mom's phone charger in the pocket of Dad's raincoat. I made him shower. Owen called on the 3rd day. His face froze every few seconds on my screen, usually with his mouth open. He wore a fleece jacket and stood in a corridor under fluorescent lights. Why didn't anybody tell me sooner? Dad asked us to wait until we knew more. His picture jumped. How bad is it? I told him what the neurologist had said, not what Dad had heard. I can come home, he said. Dad, sitting beside me in the family waiting area, shook his head hard enough to look like he had water in his ears. We don't know what the rehab plan is yet, I said. I can get emergency leave. I know. Mara. Dad leaned toward the phone. Son, there's nothing for you to do here. She's stable. You stay focused. Owen looked past me, as if he could see Dad through the screen. Are you sure? Dad nodded. Your sister's here. The words warmed me before I understood what else they meant. Owen called Mom. She managed his name on the second try. He cried after they disconnected, though he turned his face away and pretended the connection had failed. That evening, a rehabilitation coordinator gave us 3 possible discharge paths. Dad heard only the one involving home. "She'll do better in her own bed," he said. The coordinator folded her hands. "Your wife currently needs assistance transferring, bathing, dressing, and using the restroom. The home has stairs?" 14, I said. Dad looked at me. "You counted. I grew up there. We can put her in the guest room. The guest room is upstairs. The den, then. There's no shower downstairs. We'll figure it out." The coordinator glanced at me. I knew that glance. It was the professional version of sliding a loaded box across a table to see who reached for it. Dad reached for nothing. I asked about inpatient rehabilitation, equipment, home modifications, and transportation. The coordinator answered me. Dad stared at a brochure showing a smiling, silver-haired couple standing beside a suspiciously clean walker. In the elevator, he said, "Those places are where people give up. It's a rehab hospital, Dad. Your mother asked to go home. Mom also called me Marmalade." She knew what she meant. The elevator doors opened. He didn't move. "I can't do this by myself," he said. "You won't have to. How long can you stay? Emergency leave gives me 10 days. I can request more." And then the doors began to close. I caught them with my hand. "And then we make a plan." He walked out without answering. That night, I slept in my old room under a ceiling fan that clicked once every rotation. Dad had preserved the room by neglecting it. My high school track ribbons still hung from a nail. The desk contained 3 dried pens, a phone book, and a yellow sticky note in Mom's handwriting that said, "Call dentist" in capital letters. At 11:47, my phone lit up with a message from Paula. Friday moved. No drama. "How is she?" I typed, "Stable. Long road." Then Dad knocked without waiting and came in carrying 2 mugs of instant coffee. He sat on the edge of the desk chair. "Your mother trusts you. She trusts you too. She shouldn't right now." I looked at him. His hands were shaking. He wrapped them around the mug. "Owen's career has momentum," he said. "You know how hard that is to get. So does mine." I know, that's not what I meant. It was exactly what he meant. He just wasn't ready to hear it spoken clearly. My phone buzzed again. Paula had sent a photograph of the re-enlistment flag folded on her desk with a sticky note attached. "Not going anywhere." Dad saw it. "When do you have to decide?" he asked. I told him. He stared into his coffee. "Mara, don't sign anything yet." 3 days later, after I returned to Colorado to clear my quarters and handle the leave extension in person, he left the message I would keep for 4 years. By then, his fear had found a plan. And the plan was me. "Mara, it's Dad. Listen, don't sign anything, please. Your mother needs you. I need you." His voice broke. There was a scrape like he'd sat down hard or dropped something. "I know what I said before. I know you've got plans. But I can't get her from the bed to the chair. She won't let the nurses help without fighting them, and they keep talking about equipment and outpatient schedules. I can't keep it all straight." I sat alone in my apartment with my boots still on. I had spent the morning explaining to 3 different offices that I hadn't re-enlisted yet. The ceremony had merely been postponed, and no, I did not know whether postponed meant canceled. Dad continued. "Don't call Owen about this. He's got too much happening and his career has momentum. He can't do anything from over there anyway. You're the only one I trust to hold this together. You're my soldier, Mara. Come home." The message ended. I played it again. Not because I hadn't understood him, because I had. My uniform was hanging over the bedroom door. The next morning, I was supposed to report to the battalion retention office and either set a new date for my oath or say I wasn't taking one. There were other possibilities on paper: a short extension, a request for compassionate reassignment, emergency leave stretched until somebody higher up got tired of signing it. None of them guaranteed I would be in North Carolina long enough to build the kind of recovery Dad was describing. I called him. He answered on the first ring. "Did you hear it?" "Yes." "So?" So how did the transfer go? What transfer? Mom. Bed to chair. The therapist did it. Did you watch? I was there. That wasn't my question. He exhaled through his nose. They use some kind of belt, a gait belt, whatever it's called. Did they teach you? They said they would. Did you schedule it? Jesus, Mara, I haven't had time. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Where are you now? Home. I came to get clothes. Mom had been in inpatient rehab for 5 days. Dad had packed for her twice. The first time he brought 3 bras, 1 slipper, a church dress, and no underwear. The second time he brought a suitcase full of clothing she couldn't put on without assistance. When I pointed this out, he said he had never claimed to be an occupational therapist. You said you were staying at the hotel, I said. I needed my own shower. That's why I booked the hotel. I don't like their soap. Bring your soap. You don't understand how exhausted I am. I looked at the half-packed boxes in my apartment. I understand more than you think. He went quiet. I shouldn't have to beg my own daughter, he said. There it was, not fear now. Leverage. You shouldn't, I agreed. You should be able to tell me what you need without making me responsible for whether the whole family survives. I don't know what that means. I know. He lowered his voice. Just come home. 1 year. Get her steady. Help me set everything up. If you want to go back after that, we'll figure it out. Going back was not a jacket I could leave on a hook. If I don't re-enlist, I separate, I said. I can't just call next year and ask for my old life. You've always landed on your feet. That isn't the same as not falling. I'll make it right. How? We're family. We'll remember what you did. At the time, I thought that was a promise. Paula came over after work carrying Thai food and 2 cans of ginger ale. She placed them on my bare kitchen counter, surveyed the boxes, and said, "You're not allowed to pack while emotionally compromised. I'm not emotionally compromised. You put your coffee maker in a box labeled winter clothing. I ran out of boxes. You have 17 empty ones." She took off her jacket. Underneath, she wore her uniform, sleeves down, name tape reading, Ellis like mine. People regularly assumed we were sisters, though Paula was black, I was white, and we looked alike only in our mutual irritation at stupid questions. I played Dad's message. She listened without interrupting. When it ended, she opened one of the Thai containers and pushed it toward me. Eat. That's your analysis? That's step 1. I have to answer in the morning. No, you have to eat noodles tonight. I obeyed because Paula could make dinner sound like a lawful order. When I'd made it through half the container, she asked, "What do you want?" My mother to walk into her own kitchen. That's not what I asked. I want Dad not to sound like that, still not it. I put down the fork. I want to stay in. Okay? But if I stay in, she goes home with him, and he thinks a gait belt is a fashion accessory. You could request an extension and spend the whole extension trying to get reassigned while he calls every night? Probably. He'll make her afraid of rehab. He already thinks inpatient care means abandonment. Paula leaned back against the counter. You know you're allowed to resent him and still help her. That feels inefficient. Feelings are known for their poor logistics. I laughed, then hated myself for laughing. She took my phone and replayed one sentence from the message. You're the only one I trust to hold this together. Sounds nice, she said. It doesn't? It sounds like he knows exactly which button starts the machine. I reached for the phone. She handed it back. Whatever you decide, she said, make sure it's your decision. Otherwise, you'll spend years waiting for him to admit he made it for you. The next morning, Sergeant Howard from Retention had a blue folder on his desk and a bowl of peppermints that tasted like dust. He was a round, cheerful man who spoke about enlistment contracts the way some people discussed cruises. We can push the ceremony 2 weeks, he said. Captain Reyes is available on the 23rd. I'm not signing. His smile stayed in place for 1 beat too long. Not today, not at all. He closed the folder. You want to tell me why? Family medical situation. We can explore an extension. I know. Compassionate action. I know. You're on the promotion list. I know. He waited. I had expected someone to argue harder. I had prepared answers, dates, rehabilitation projections, a whole defense built in neat rows. Howard only turned the folder sideways and rested his hand on it. "You sure?" "No." "Yes?" He nodded once. "All right." That was how 11 years began ending. No trumpet, no dramatic tearing of paper. A blue folder turned sideways on a government desk. I called Dad from the parking lot. "I declined," I said. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then his breath rushed out. "Thank God, not thank you, thank God." I stared through the windshield at a soldier jogging across the lot with one hand holding her cap on. Wind pushed grit against the car. "I'll be back after I clear," I said. "There are things I have to finish here." "Of course." "Take your time." 3 hours earlier, time had been the one thing he insisted we didn't have. "And Dad?" "Yeah? Tell Owen." A pause. "Tell him what?" "That I'm leaving to help with Mom. I'll talk to him. Not that I wanted a change. Not that the Army stopped working out. Why would I say that? Because it makes this easier. For who?" I almost said his name. Instead, I said, "Just tell him the truth." He promised he would. My separation took nearly 2 months. I returned to North Carolina twice during that stretch, once to attend a care conference, and once when Mom developed a urinary tract infection and Dad announced over the phone that the rehab facility had poisoned her. "They didn't poison her," I said. "She didn't have an infection before she went there. She also wasn't using a catheter before her stroke." "So you're taking their side?" "There aren't sides. There are always sides." Mom came home 6 days before my final out-processing appointment. I had arranged for a hospital bed in the den, a portable ramp over the front step, grab bars in the downstairs bathroom, and a narrow transfer bench for the tub. Dad complained that the bench made the bathroom look clinical. "It is clinical," I said. "She can't stand in the shower. She doesn't want the house looking like a hospital." Mom, seated in her wheelchair behind him, pointed at the decorative wooden sign over the toilet. It read, "Live, laugh, love." "Ugly," she said carefully. Dad turned. "The bench?" She pointed again. "That." I took down the sign. Her speech was improving. Her right arm remained weak, and walking required a cane, a brace, and somebody close enough to catch her without making her feel watched. She hated the brace. She hated pureed meat. She hated being praised for putting on socks. Most of all, she hated Dad telling people how well she was doing. Neighbor women arrived with casseroles and hungry curiosity. Dad met each one at the door and narrated the stroke from the beginning. By the third retelling, he had recognized the symptoms immediately, directed the paramedics, and personally insisted on the procedure that removed the clot. I was in the den sorting medications when Mrs. Talbot leaned around him. "And Mara, you're home for good?" "Looks that way." Dad answered before I could add anything. She decided 11 years was enough, ready for civilian life. I looked at him. Mrs. Talbot smiled. "Well, your mother must be thrilled to have you back." Mom was watching from the hospital bed. Her eyes moved from Dad to me. "I came back because she needed help," I said. Dad picked up the casserole. Same destination, different road. His smile tightened, but Mrs. Talbot was there, so he kissed my forehead. "My practical girl," he said. After she left, he carried the casserole into the kitchen and began criticizing its cheese distribution. Mom crooked one finger at me. I sat beside her. "Army?" she asked. "I'm separating." Her forehead creased. Words gathered slowly now, and waiting for them was one of the hardest things Dad had not learned to do. For me. For the situation. That is yes. I adjusted the edge of her blanket, although it didn't need adjusting. She studied my face. Her own had always been too perceptive for comfort. The stroke had changed its symmetry, not its aim. "Did I?" she began, then stopped. I waited. "Ruin?" "No." Her eyes narrowed. "No," I repeated. From the kitchen, Dad called that the casserole needed salt. Mom squeezed my fingers with her left hand. "Liar," she said. She didn't say it cruelly. That would have been easier. She said it with the faint satisfaction of someone who had finally managed to thread a needle. Go to sleep, I told her. You first. I'm not the one in a hospital bed. Not hospital. No. It's in the den next to Dad's recliner, which makes it completely different. The corner of her mouth lifted. At 2 in the morning, she rang the brass handbell Dad had placed on the table beside her. He'd found it in a kitchen drawer and announced that it was more reliable than all these electronic gadgets. It was also loud enough to wake people in adjoining counties. I reached the den before he did. Mom needed the bathroom. I helped her sit up, fitted the brace, and waited while she found her balance. She pushed my hand away when I touched her elbow. I've got you, I said. Smother. You mean mother? She glared. Oh, smother. Got it. Dad appeared in the doorway wearing striped pajama pants and one sock. What happened? She needs the bathroom. I thought she went before bed. Mom raised the bell. Don't, he said. She rang it once while looking directly at him. I bit the inside of my cheek. The transfer took 10 minutes. Dad watched from the doorway and offered observations until I handed him the gate belt. What am I supposed to do with this? Learn. Right now? She's going to need the bathroom tomorrow, too. Mom made an impatient sound. I'm not practicing with her in the middle of the night, Dad said. What if I do it wrong? That's why I'm here. You're better at this. I wasn't born knowing how. He folded the belt over his hand and gave it back. I'll watch again. He watched for 2 months. Every task became a thing I did better, which meant every task became mine. Dad could cook, but Mom ate more when I made breakfast. He could drive, but she was calmer when I took her to therapy. He could call the pharmacy, but he didn't understand their phone menu, as if pressing 2 for prescriptions required cryptographic training. The strange part was that he wasn't lazy in any general sense. He spent an entire Saturday pressure washing the driveway while I helped Mom shower, changed her bedding, sorted the insurance statements, and prepared 6 days of medication. When I asked him to take over lunch, he pointed toward the gleaming concrete. I've been working all morning. So have I. Then you know how tired I am. He could work until his hands blistered as long as he got to choose the work. Mom's recovery came in small, stubborn victories. She advanced from the wheelchair to a walker, from the walker to a quad cane. She relearned the microwave before she relearned the names of all the buttons. Her therapist asked her to practice common phrases, and Mom chose, Cal, be quiet. Dad thought I had coached her. I hadn't, but I wished I had. She was less funny on days when frustration cornered her. Once, after I brought her the wrong cardigan for therapy, she threw it at me with her left hand. Blue, she said. That is blue. Other blue. There are 7 blue cardigans in your closet. Not stupid. I didn't say you were. Think. I think you have too many blue cardigans. Her face twisted. Army clothes. Same. Easy. The words landed cleanly despite the effort it took her to produce them. I picked up the cardigan. She looked away. I went upstairs, closed the bathroom door, and sat on the edge of the tub until I could trust myself to return without saying something permanent. 10 minutes later, Mom shuffled into the hallway with her cane. She was not supposed to take the stairs alone. She had climbed 3 of them by the time I found her. What are you doing? Sorry, you could fall. Sorry, she repeated. You don't get to scare me half to death as an apology. She held the handrail and looked up at me. Other blue, she said. Please. I laughed. I didn't want to. She did too, a rough sound that came from deep in her chest. Then I went back for the cardigan she meant. My official separation date arrived on a Tuesday. The Army sent me a final list of instructions, a survey I didn't complete, and more records than I could organize in one sitting. My household goods arrived the following week. Dad stood in the driveway directing the movers as if I had not coordinated military freight for a living. Guest rooms at the top of the stairs, he told them. I already labeled everything by room. You put G2 on these boxes. How are they supposed to know what that means? Guest room, 2nd floor? It's on the sheet I gave them. What sheet? The mover nearest me held up a copy. Dad nodded as if his intervention had produced it. My apartment fit into the guest room badly. Uniforms occupied one side of the closet. Civilian clothes occupied 6 inches at the other end. Dad suggested I donate the uniforms because I wouldn't need them anymore. "They're mine," I said. "I didn't say they weren't. You told me to get rid of them. I suggested making room." "For what?" He looked around at the bed, boxes, and dresser. "Your new life." My new life had nowhere to put its shoes. Owen called that weekend. He was back in temporary quarters after the exercise, cheerful in the slightly manic way he got when he hadn't slept enough. "Look at you," he said when I answered. "Homeowner. I own 1 towel rack and half a closet. Dad says you're making the place wheelchair-friendly. Walker-friendly now." "That's great. How's Mom's arm?" I turned the phone toward the den. Mom lifted her right hand 3 inches off the blanket. Owen clapped like she'd lifted a truck. "Show off," he said. "Major," she answered. Her speech was clearer with him. Maybe because he gave her his full attention from a screen where waiting didn't make him feel useless. Dad lowered himself into the chair beside her and leaned into view. "Tell Owen about the step," he said. Mom rolled her eyes. "What step?" Owen asked. "She got all the way onto the back patio yesterday." "I did," Mom said. "Mara, we've been working with her every day," Dad interrupted. "I told the therapist she needed a goal. I stood behind the phone where Owen couldn't see me. 'And how are you?' he asked. At first I thought he meant Dad. 'Mara,' he said. 'You good?' 'Sure.' 'That doesn't sound sure. I'm figuring out work. Already? My retirement income is currently imaginary. You could take a few months.' Dad glanced toward me. She's never been good at sitting still. I ignored him. "I have an interview Monday." "For what?" "Operations coordinator at a home health agency." Owen's eyebrows rose. "That sounds weirdly perfect. It involves schedules, equipment, staffing, and people calling to say everything is on fire when nothing is technically burning. So the army, but with cardigans." Mom pointed at him. "Funny." Dad laughed too loudly. Owen asked about my separation paperwork, then said, "You know, I'm surprised you actually did it." "Did what? Got out?" Dad began adjusting the blanket over Mom's knees. "You were talking about staying in forever," Owen continued. "Then Dad said you'd been thinking maybe it wasn't your thing anymore." I watched Dad tuck one corner of the blanket beneath Mom's leg. He didn't look up. "I wasn't thinking that," I said. The room changed by 1/2 degree. Owen's face went still, not frozen by the connection this time. "Oh," he said. Dad patted Mom's knee. "People say all kinds of things when they're weighing a big decision." "I didn't say that. I may have misunderstood. You told me you'd tell him why." "This is why," he said, gesturing at the den. "He can see where you are." Owen looked between us through a phone camera that could only show one face at a time. "Did you leave because of Mom?" he asked. Mom lowered her eyes. I should have said yes. 1 syllable. It was right there. Dad's voice from the voicemail ran through my head. "Don't call Owen about this. His career has momentum." Owen was 3 weeks away from an evaluation Dad had mentioned so often that even Mom's speech therapist knew about it. If I told him then, he would feel obligated to come home. Or he wouldn't. And I would know what that meant. Both possibilities frightened me more than I wanted to admit. "It was complicated," I said. Dad relaxed. Owen nodded slowly. "Right." Mom reached for the phone, ending the subject by demanding to see the view outside his window. He showed her a parking lot, a gray sky, and the corner of another building. Dad praised it as though Owen had personally designed Europe. After the call, I followed Dad into the kitchen. "You lied to him." I simplified. "You said I wanted out. You were considering it." "No, I wasn't. You didn't re-enlist, because you asked me not to." He opened the refrigerator and moved things around without taking anything out. "What do you want from me, Mara? You want me to tell your brother his mother's recovery cost you your career? How do you think that makes her feel? This isn't about making Mom feel guilty. She already asked if she ruined your life." I stared at him. "How do you know that?" "She asked me too. And what did you say?" I said no. "Did you tell her you called me?" He shut the refrigerator. We were in a crisis. Everybody did what they had to do. Owen stayed in Poland. He was serving his country. So was I. Dad's face hardened. Why are you turning this into a competition? I almost admired it. The speed of it. He could move a burden from his own hands to mine before I saw him reach for it. I'm not, I said. I'm asking you not to rewrite what happened. No one is rewriting anything. Then call him back. Don't be dramatic. Call him and tell him what you asked me to do. His eyes shifted toward the den. Mom was close enough to hear us if we raised our voices. Dad lowered his. Your brother has enough pressure. Your mother has enough guilt. I have enough keeping this house together. If you need everyone to throw you a parade for coming home, say that. I stood there long enough for the refrigerator motor to click on. Then I went upstairs. The voicemail was still in my messages. I saved the audio file to my phone and emailed a copy to myself. I gave it no dramatic name, only the date and Dad's first initial. I told myself it was practical, the same way I told myself everything was temporary. I got the home health job on Monday. My new boss, Beth Lawson, wore red glasses and interviewed me in an office crowded with dead plants. You don't have healthcare administration experience, she said. No, you don't have civilian scheduling experience. Not technically. What do you have? I've moved food, fuel, medical supplies, replacement parts, and occasionally people through places where roads disappeared overnight. Beth tilted her head. I added, and I know how to answer a phone without promising something we can't deliver. She hired me before lunch. When I told Dad, he smiled and said, see, everything worked out. I had been home less than 10 weeks. Already he could look directly at what I had lost and see only how neatly I had cleaned up afterward. Everything had not worked out by Tuesday morning. At 6:40, Dad called while I was trying to find the employee entrance to Beth's office. Your mother won't eat. What did you make? Oatmeal. She hates oatmeal. She ate it before the stroke. She hated it then too. She was being polite. To me? Occasionally. I found a metal door marked staff only and pulled. Locked. What am I supposed to give her? Eggs, toast, yogurt. There's cut fruit on the second shelf. She says the yogurt tastes like wall paste. She's right. Give her the eggs. I have a dentist appointment at 9. I need to leave by 8. It's 6:40. You know I don't like rushing in the morning. A woman in purple scrubs came through the door from inside and held it open for me. I'm starting my new job, I whispered. So you can't help? I am helping. I just told you how to make eggs. He sighed like I'd assigned him field surgery. Behind him, Mom said, cheese. She wants cheese in them, I said. I heard her. Then why are we still talking? He hung up. The woman in scrubs gave me a sympathetic smile. Family? She asked. Enemy combatant. She laughed and introduced herself as Francine, one of the agency's physical therapy assistants. By the time I found my desk, she had told Beth I was funny, which created an expectation I had no intention of meeting before coffee. My desk faced a whiteboard covered with magnetic strips bearing patient names, employee initials, and colored dots no one could explain consistently. Red meant urgent, unless it meant nursing. Blue meant confirmed unless Kim had placed it, in which case blue meant waiting for confirmation. 2 strips had fallen behind a filing cabinet and apparently represented actual human beings expecting visits. Beth handed me a mug that said Chaos Coordinator. Previous employee left it, she said. She also left us. Promising. She cried in the parking lot first. Less promising. At 7:18, a nurse called out sick. At 7:26, a client's husband called because no one had arrived for a 7 o'clock visit that had been scheduled for 8. At 7:40, the printer jammed with 19 pages inside it. Beth stood in the doorway drinking tea and observing me with unnerving interest. Are you testing me? I asked. No. This is a quiet morning. By 10, I had created a temporary schedule, reassigned 6 visits, located the missing patient strips, and learned that the office manager hid good pens in a box labeled tax forms. By noon, I understood why Beth's plants had died. No one in that building had time to notice anything that couldn't use a telephone. The work made immediate sense to me, not because it was easy, because every problem connected to another problem, and most disasters were merely small failures that had been permitted to meet each other. A late aid created a missed meal. A missed meal changed a glucose reading. A changed reading produced a nurse call, which pulled someone from another visit, which turned one family's inconvenience into 3 families' emergencies. At Fort Carson, we had called that second and third order effects. At Beth's office, Francine called it Tuesday. I liked her version better. For the first few weeks, work felt almost restful. People asked directly for what they needed. Beth said, "We have no coverage in Pine Ridge," and meant exactly that. A nurse said, "I can take one more visit, but not 2, and nobody accused her of failing to love her family. At home, every request arrived disguised as weather. Mom seemed tired. Dad's back was bothering him. The pharmacy was impossible. The chicken smelled questionable. Could I look at the insurance letter since I was so good at that sort of thing? I began waking at 5:30 to organize Mom's medication and breakfast before work. I scheduled appointments during my lunch hour, took her to therapy twice a week, and cooked on Sundays. Dad handled the lawn, the mail, and the solemn announcement of tasks I had already completed. He also began referring to my job as that little office. "How was the little office?" he would ask while eating the dinner I'd made. "Still structurally sound. Any chance they'll let you work from home?" "I coordinate people who go into other people's homes." So that doesn't mean I can do it while loading Mom's dishwasher. I was only asking. Mom's progress slowed, which the neurologist had told us to expect. Dad treated the plateau as a personal insult by her nervous system. He bought exercise bands online, ignored the therapist's instructions, and tried to make Mom complete repetitions during television commercials. "Arm up," he would say. "Your arm," she'd answer. He accused her of not wanting recovery badly enough. I accused him of confusing recovery with obedience. Mom accused both of us of making her miss Jeopardy. Owen came home in November with a duffel bag, a new haircut that looked exactly like his old haircut, and enough duty-free chocolate to suggest Poland had no other export. Dad met him in the driveway. "There's my soldier." I was 10 feet away carrying a case of nutritional shakes from my trunk. Owen hugged Dad, then came straight to me and took the case. "You look tired," he said. "You look like a thumb." "Good to see you, too." He hugged me with one arm, the case pressed between us. Owen had always hugged like he was rescuing someone from a ledge. Inside, Mom cried when she saw him. Dad cried because Mom cried. Owen tried not to cry, which made his whole face turn red. I stood near the kitchen doorway holding his duffel bag. "Get over here," Mom told me. Her speech had improved enough that the command came out perfectly. We ended up in a 4-person knot around her chair, everyone laughing because Dad stepped on Owen's boot and blamed the rug. For 2 days, the house became lighter. Owen made Mom practice walking by putting pieces of chocolate at opposite ends of the hallway. She called it degrading and ate every piece. He fixed the cabinet hinge Dad had been meaning to fix since April. He took over dishes without holding a press conference. Then he began seeing the version of the house Dad had carefully kept outside the phone camera. On the 3rd morning, Mom rang the bell at 6. I was already dressed for work. Owen came into the den behind me. "What does she need?" "Bathroom. I can help." Dad appeared at the hallway entrance, robe tied crookedly. "Mara's got it. I can learn. No reason to have 2 people tripping over each other." I handed Owen the gate belt. "This goes around her waist. Keep your knees bent. Don't pull her by the arms." He watched once, then did the return transfer himself. Too fast, but safely. Mom patted his cheek. "Show off," I said. "You're just threatened by natural talent." Dad returned to bed before we finished. At breakfast, Owen looked toward the hallway. "Does he usually help?" "He helps." That was a diplomatic answer. I'm adapting to civilian life. He watched me pack Mom's lunch, confirm her transportation, and tape the day's medication packet to the front of the refrigerator. "You do this before work every day?" "Most days." "What does Dad do?" Questions my methods. Mom laughed into her coffee. That afternoon, Owen picked me up from Beth's office. He had offered to take Mom to therapy and afterward appeared in the parking lot with 2 coffees, one of them prepared exactly the way I drank it. The small accuracy almost undid me. We sat in his rental car with the heater running. "She told me you gave up 6 years, he said. I stared at the coffee lid. "She said that?" "Not in one sentence. It took most of the drive and a lot of swearing." "That sounds like Mom. Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried. Dad told you I wanted out. You said it was complicated." "It was." "Was it?" I looked at him. "Dad called me 3 days before I had to decide. He said he couldn't manage. He told me not to bother you because your career had momentum." Owen's jaw tightened. "He said that?" "Yes. You should have called me." "And said what? That I needed to come home." "Would you have?" "Of course." There was no pause. That bothered me more than hesitation would have. You were in the middle of an exercise. I could have left. And then? "We'd figure it out." Dad offered the same plan. He looked out the windshield. A woman crossed the parking lot carrying a stack of folders against her chest. "I would have helped," he said. "You can help now. That's not fair." "Why?" "I'm stationed overseas, and I was stationed in Colorado. That's not what I meant. It was becoming a family phrase." Owen took a drink and winced because the coffee was hot. "I'm not saying you should have done it," I said. "I'm saying Dad decided which career mattered before he asked either of us. He shouldn't have." "No, but you still made the decision." There it was, gentler in his voice but shaped exactly like Dad's logic. "Yes," I said. "I did. What do you want me to do about it now?" "Help while you're here." "I am helping. For 6 days. I have a duty station, Mara." "I know. You're angry at the wrong person. I'm angry at several people. I'm excellent at multitasking." He put his coffee in the cup holder. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Make a joke so you don't have to admit you're blaming me." "I don't blame you for Dad's call." "But I blame you for being relieved that I answered it." His face changed. I opened the car door. "That was a cheap shot," he said. "It was." I got out anyway. At home that night, Owen and Dad watched basketball while I helped Mom wash her hair over the kitchen sink. She hated the shower chair and preferred what she called salon, though no salon I knew required towels on the floor and a colander to protect someone's eyes. From the living room, Dad cheered. Mom looked toward the sound. "You told?" she said. "Owen?" She nodded. "Yes." "Fight?" "A little." "Good." I rinsed shampoo from behind her left ear. "You enjoy conflict more than people realize. Boring here." Afterward, Owen found me upstairs folding towels. "I changed my flight," he said. I kept folding. "I'm staying 4 extra days." I cleared it. "That's good. And I'll take Mom to both appointments next week. Okay?" He stood in the doorway. "I was relieved," he said, "when Dad said you were there." I hated how relieved I was, so I didn't ask what it cost. I placed a towel on the stack. "That's closer," I said. "To an apology?" "To the truth." He nodded, not pleased, but listening. For the rest of his visit, Owen helped. He learned the medications. He cooked badly. He got Dad to attend a transfer training session by telling him the therapist had specifically asked whether Cal was capable of it. Dad arrived 20 minutes early. When Owen left, he hugged me beside the airport security line. "This isn't forever," he said. I wanted to ask which part he meant. Instead, I told him to call Mom on Thursdays because Tuesdays were speech therapy days, and she was usually too tired afterward. He promised. For a while, he kept that promise. Dad did the transfers for nearly a week. Then his back hurt. Then Mom said I was gentler. Then the gate belt returned to the hook where it waited for me. Winter settled over the house. My uniforms remained at the far end of the guest room closet, sealed behind a plastic garment bag. At work, Beth gave me control of the scheduling board and stopped calling my changes temporary. At home, Dad began telling people I had found my true calling in healthcare. Each version of the story made my old life sound less real. and every time I let one pass, unchallenged, correcting the next became harder. The first time Beth offered me the operations manager position, I thought she was asking me to interview someone else. You'd oversee scheduling, intake, field coordination, and the supply budget, she said. I waited for the name. Beth leaned back in her chair. The red frames of her glasses matched the file folder in front of her, though I suspected that was accidental. She dressed like color had personally offended her unless it was red. You, she said. Oh, that's the level of enthusiasm I was hoping for. I've been here 7 months, and in those 7 months, missed visits dropped by 40%. 38. You corrected me during your promotion. You taught me to be myself. She took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. There's a complication. The agency had acquired a smaller office 90 miles east. The new manager would divide time between locations for at least a year, then likely relocate. I pictured Mom's medication taped to the refrigerator. Dad standing over the gate belt as though it had insulted him. My guest room full of boxes I still hadn't unpacked. How often would I be gone overnight? 2 nights most weeks. I can't. Beth put her glasses back on. Can't or won't. Does the distinction change the schedule? No. Then can't. She closed the folder without arguing, which was somehow worse. The offer stays open until Friday, she said. After that, I have to post it. Understood. And Mara? I stopped at the door. You're allowed to want something before everybody else agrees it's convenient. Is that in the employee handbook? No. The handbook has a policy against storing tuna in the break room refrigerator. That's the extent of its wisdom. At home, Dad had placed a stack of insurance envelopes on my dinner plate. I thought you could look at these. After I eat, they may be time-sensitive. They arrived today? One came Monday. It was Thursday. Mom sat at the table using her right hand to hold a fork. The grip was awkward, and potatoes kept sliding off before they reached her mouth. She refused to switch hands. I moved the envelopes beside my chair. How was work? She asked. Fine. Liar. It had become one of her favorite complete sentences. Dad looked up. What happened? Nothing happened. Mom pointed at me with the fork. Face. My face is tired. Job. I should have waited. I should have told her alone. Instead, I said, Beth offered me a promotion. Mom's fork hit the plate. Good. Dad smiled. That didn't take long. It requires travel. His smile disappeared so quickly it felt like a trick. How much travel? 2 nights a week, maybe relocation later. Relocation where? About 90 miles east. Mom said, take. Dad stared at her. Denise, what? You need someone here at night. I sleep. You get up to use the bathroom. So do you. That's not the point. Mom looked at me again. Take. Dad pushed his chair back. I'm glad everyone's so confident in my ability to manage this without warning. It's not without warning, I said. I haven't accepted. Because you know it's impossible. Mom slapped her left hand against the table. The sound made all 3 of us jump. Not impossible. Dad's face softened in the way it did when he was preparing to ignore her politely. Honey, you almost fell last week. I tripped. On your own cane, stupid cane. You need supervision. She doesn't need supervision, I said. She needs a clear path and someone available if she asks. And who's going to be available? You. He looked genuinely startled. I can't hear the bell upstairs. Move the monitor into your room. I don't sleep well with noise. Mom made a sound that required no translation. Dad turned toward me. Do what you want, Mara. You're an adult. But if something happens while you're gone, you'll have to live with that. The next morning, I declined the job. Beth said, all right, and posted it before lunch. Dad never asked what I had decided. He knew. Mom did not speak to him through dinner. She spoke to me only when necessary, using the clipped phrases she usually reserved for bad therapists and telemarketers. At bedtime, I helped her upstairs. She had recently progressed to climbing the full flight with someone behind her. Halfway up, she stopped. You make worse, she said. What? Help. I kept one hand near the gate belt. I'm not touching you, not stairs. She climbed another step, breathing hard. Then what? You help him worse. Dad, he can't. You do, then he can't. I looked down toward the empty hallway. You want me to let him make mistakes with you? Yes. That's easy to say until he drops you. He won't. You don't know that. You don't. She climbed again. At the top, she sat on the landing to rest. I sat beside her. I can't take a job that puts me 90 miles away if you need something, I said. Phone. What am I supposed to do by phone? Same as Owen. It was a sharp answer, and she knew it. I stood. Come on. Mara, I said, come on. She caught my wrist with her left hand. Your life, she said. The stroke had made some sentences difficult and others brutally efficient. I helped her to bed and went downstairs. Dad was asleep in his recliner with the television on. The brass bell sat on the table beside his elbow. He had brought it down after complaining about the monitor. I picked it up and rang it once. He jerked awake. What happened? Nothing. What the hell, Mara? I wanted to make sure you could hear it. He squinted at me. You can, I said. By spring, Mom no longer needed the hospital bed. 2 delivery men removed it from the den, revealing deep rectangular dents in the carpet. Dad stood over the marks with his hands on his hips. Think those come out? Mom walked in with her cane. Eventually. We both looked at her. She smiled. Dad did not appreciate being turned into a carpet metaphor. Her therapy schedule decreased. Insurance stopped paying for speech sessions, so we practiced at home with recipe cards, newspaper headlines, and the plots of old movies. She could shower with a bench and dress without help if nobody hurried her. She began making lunch again, though Dad complained she left cabinet doors open. The original crisis ended. My responsibilities did not. Once Mom could make her own breakfast, Dad asked me to review their bank statements because numbers weren't his thing. When she no longer needed rides 3 days a week, he began scheduling medical appointments around my lunch hour because I was already in that world. When the insurance forms thinned out, he found property tax questions, appliance warranties, and a dispute with the cable company. I moved into an apartment 11 minutes away. The announcement produced less outrage than the promotion because Dad assumed it was temporary. He inspected the 1-bedroom unit, criticized the parking, tested every faucet, and said, "Well, it'll be nice for you to have somewhere quiet to sleep sometimes." Sometimes? In case Mom has a bad night. Mom sat on the bare living room floor while I assembled a bookcase. "You live," she told him. "I'm aware. She lives here." I heard her. Good. Owen sent me a housewarming package containing a bottle of wine, a toolkit, and a doormat that said, "Logistics happen." The toolkit was terrible. The wine was excellent. I used the mat for 3 years. Dad called my first night at 12:08 because Mom felt dizzy. I drove over in sweatpants, checked her blood pressure, reviewed her medications, and discovered she had skipped dinner because Dad wanted to try a new barbecue restaurant, and she didn't like the menu. She said she wasn't hungry, he told me. Mom ate toast and peanut butter. The dizziness passed. On the way home, I pulled into a gas station and cried behind the steering wheel for exactly 4 minutes. Then I went inside, bought a package of powdered donuts, and ate 3 over the sink in my new kitchen. I got good at living in 2 places. My apartment held my clothes, my mail, and the silence I paid rent to possess. My parents' house held the tasks no one noticed until I stopped doing them. Owen's Thursday calls became every other Thursday, then whenever his schedule allowed. He was assigned back in the States, though never close enough for Dad to expect him on a Tuesday night. He visited holidays, repaired something visible, took Mom to dinner, and left with everybody grateful. He did contribute. He sent money when insurance refused the new brace. He called the neurologist once after Dad complained no one listened to him. He remembered Mom's stroke anniversary and sent flowers she disliked. But distance kept his help finite. Mine had no edges. Dad learned to narrate that difference in Owen's favor. "Owen handles the big things," he told Uncle Ray at Thanksgiving. "Mara's good with the day-to-day. I was carrying a roasting pan hot enough to remove fingerprints. What big things?" I asked. Dad glanced at Owen, inviting him to join the joke. Owen didn't. "He means I live farther away," he said. Dad laughed. "Don't be so sensitive, both of you." Mom, seated at the table, said, "Cal, shut up." Her speech was almost completely clear by then. The subject changed. That became our family's preferred method of peace. Mom fired one accurate shot, Dad acted wounded, Owen looked uncomfortable, and I cleared the dishes. The years did not pass evenly. They accumulated in pharmacy receipts, promotions at work that required no travel, replacement cane tips, and holidays built around Owen's leave. Mom became stronger, Dad became more dependent. I became the person everyone described as capable when they meant available. Then Owen called on a humid Tuesday night while I was changing the air filter in my parents' hallway. Dad answered on speaker. "Did you get it?" Owen asked. "Get what?" The list came out. Dad stopped beneath the vent. Mom muted the television. I climbed down from the step stool. Owen laughed, breathless and embarrassed. "I made Lieutenant Colonel." Dad shouted so loudly the speaker crackled. Mom began crying. I smiled because I was proud of him, because he had worked for it, and because loving someone does not become simple just because the family has made everything else difficult. Dad grabbed my shoulders. "We're going to do this right," he said. "The ceremony, the dinner, all of it." Then he handed me the phone and went to find a bottle of champagne. He did not ask whether I would organize the celebration. He had already decided which soldier would be honored. He had also decided which one would do the work. "Lieutenant Colonel Ellis," I said into the phone. That sounds suspiciously responsible. It's mostly longer meetings. I knew there had to be a punishment. Owen laughed. Dad returned with champagne warm from the pantry and 3 glasses, forgetting that Mom was holding the 4th. He popped the cork into the ceiling, left a dent in the paint, and declared it worth it. "When's the ceremony?" he asked. 6 weeks, probably. They're confirming the date. Your mother and I will be there." Mom raised her glass. "Obviously." Dad looked at me. "You'll make sure the hotel works." "I'm standing right here," Mom said. "For the chair, I use a cane. You may get tired." "I can make a reservation," I told him. "And dinner afterward, somewhere nice. Private room, if possible." Owen spoke through the phone. "Dad, I don't need a private room. This happens once. Hopefully. We're celebrating properly." He said we, but by the time I left that night, my phone held a list of guests, 2 preferred hotels, the names of 3 restaurants Dad had rejected without calling, and a reminder to ask whether the private room had enough electrical outlets for a slideshow he had not yet made. Owen texted as I unlocked my apartment. "Sorry. For making Lieutenant Colonel? For him." I considered several responses and chose the least honest. "He's excited." Dad found a steakhouse 10 minutes from the ceremony site and decided it was perfect based on a photograph of its fireplace. I called and learned the private room was upstairs. "He can't expect every restaurant to have an elevator," Dad said. "The Americans with Disabilities Act expects quite a lot. Your mother can manage 1 flight. Her brace catches when she's tired. She'll have us. I'm not carrying Mom up restaurant stairs so you can sit near a fireplace." Mom, from the kitchen, called, "I'd like to see you try." I found another steakhouse with a ground floor room, an accessible entrance, and a manager named Lacey, who answered questions without treating me like I had requested a helicopter landing zone. Dad disliked the carpet. "We'll keep our eyes up," I said. He booked it. Then came the photographs. Dad wanted a display covering Owen's entire Army career. Owen sent him 12 pictures. Dad printed 67, including multiple versions of the same group standing beside the same armored vehicle. "Which one is Owen?" Mom asked. Dad pointed. "That's not Owen." He leaned closer. "Of course it is. That man is bald. He's wearing a helmet. He's black." Dad put on his reading glasses. I removed 11 photos that did not contain my brother. My own service appeared accidentally in one picture from a family Christmas. Owen and I were both in uniform, standing in front of the fireplace while Mom held a tray of cookies between us. I was a staff sergeant. Owen had recently made captain. Dad set it aside. "Why not that one?" Mom asked. "This board is about Owen. It has Owen. Mara's in it too." I kept trimming a photograph at the dining room table. Mom stared at Dad. "She won't contaminate it." "Can we not make everything an argument?" "You made photograph an argument." Dad dropped it back into the box. "Fine, use it." I didn't. "The week before the ceremony, he called me at work. 'What are you wearing?' 'Clothes.' 'Don't be difficult. I have a navy dress.' 'Good.' 'Why?' 'I didn't want you thinking you had to wear anything military.' I rotated my chair away from the scheduling board. Why would I wear a uniform I'm no longer authorized to wear? Some veterans wear their old things to events." "Old things?" "You know what I mean." "I truly don't." Beth walked past my office, heard my tone, and quietly closed the door for me. Dad lowered his voice. "This is Owen's day." "I don't want any confusion. No one is going to confuse me with the lieutenant colonel being promoted. I'm trying to prevent awkwardness. Then stop talking." He hung up. Beth reopened the door and placed a mint on my desk. "Emergency ration," she said. "I may need something stronger. I have stale pretzels. Hold those in reserve." As she leaned against the frame. "Family celebration? My brother's promotion?" "The military brother?" "Yes." She waited. I had worked for Beth almost 4 years. She knew I had served, but I rarely discussed it. The agency had hired veterans before, and I had no interest in becoming a leadership seminar with legs. "They're both military," she said. "Not according to my father." I told her about the navy dress. I did not tell her about the message. Beth unwrapped the mint and ate it herself. "You want me to schedule a crisis during dinner?" she asked. "I can have Francine drive into a mailbox. No property damage. A very small mailbox. I'll survive. That's not the same as having a nice time." "No," I said. "It usually isn't." The ceremony was on a Friday afternoon in an auditorium that smelled faintly of floor wax and old coffee. Owen stood at the front in his dress uniform while an officer spoke about trust, judgment, and increased responsibility. Dad sat between Mom and me, leaning forward with both hands on his knees. When Owen's new rank was pinned on, Dad cried openly. So did I. I knew what those years had required from my brother. Missed holidays, bad sleep, long separations, the constant demand to appear certain in front of people who needed him to be. Pride rose in me without permission. Pain came with it. But that wasn't Owen's fault. Afterward, people crowded the aisle. Dad shook hands with everyone who congratulated Owen as if he were accepting on the family's behalf. Mom waited until he reached her, then touched the new insignia with her right hand. Her fingers still moved slowly. "Looks expensive," she said. "It's mostly longer meetings," Owen told her. He hugged me last. "You okay?" he asked into my hair. "I'm proud of you." That wasn't the question. It's the answer you get in a receiving line. He pulled back. His expression said he knew I was evading him. His hand remained on my shoulder. "I'm glad you came," he said. "Of course I came." Dad called us toward the photographer. We took pictures in several arrangements. Owen with Mom and Dad. Owen with his commanding officer. Owen with the three of us. Then Dad asked for one with the military people. I stepped toward Owen. Dad gestured to another officer standing nearby. I meant Greg. Nobody moved. The photographer lowered his camera. Dad's face reddened. "Mara, you're not in uniform, I know. I meant people from his unit, then say that." Owen said, "She's in the picture." Dad laughed, but the laugh had no air in it. "Fine. Everybody's in the picture." I stepped out. "Take the one he wants," I told the photographer. At dinner, the fireplace worked too well. Uncle Ray removed his jacket before the appetizers. Mom's face flushed, and I asked the server to turn down the flames. Dad objected because they made the room feel ceremonial. "It feels cremational," Mom said. Lacey turned them down. The guest list included relatives, 2 of Owen's friends from his unit, Dad's former business partner and his wife, and the Talbots from our street. 14 people in total. Dad had placed the photo board on an easel beside Owen's chair. The Christmas picture was not on it. I had checked the ramp, collected Mom from her physical therapy follow-up, fixed the seating cards after Dad put Mom where her brace would catch the table leg, and reminded the restaurant that Uncle Ray's wife was allergic to shellfish. By the time I sat down, Dad was explaining to Owen's friends that our family had always understood service. Dinner went well at first. Mom drank half a glass of wine and told an embarrassing story about Owen saluting a parking attendant when he was drunk at 22. Owen denied it. Uncle Ray confirmed it. Dad laughed until he coughed. For 20 minutes, we were only a family at dinner. Then Dad stood with his wine glass. He talked about Owen as a serious child, though Owen once drove Mom's car into a decorative pond. He talked about discipline, persistence, and the willingness to finish what one started. He praised Mom for enduring the years of distance. He praised himself more subtly for teaching both of us the value of commitment. I watched Owen's face. At first he smiled, then Dad said, "Some people spend their whole lives searching for where they belong." Owen always knew. Owen's smile faded. Dad lifted his glass higher. He never took the easy road. He never walked away when service became inconvenient. Mom whispered, "Cal?" Uncle Ray looked at me, then back at Dad. I concentrated on the salt cellar near my plate. It was shaped like a tiny silver acorn. I counted the grooves in its cap. Dad could have stopped. Instead, he said, "That's what separates real commitment from good intentions." My chair scraped the floor. Owen set down his glass. "Dad, I'm going to get some air," I said. Dad shook his head. "Mara, nobody is talking about you." Uncle Ray, who had consumed enough Cabernet to become honest, said, "Well, she served too." Dad gave him a tolerant smile. "Of course she did. 11 years, Ray said. "I know how long my daughter served." "Then maybe leave that part out," Owen said. Dad looked around the room. The toast had escaped him, and instead of letting it go, he tried to force everyone back into position. "This is ridiculous. I'm proud of both my children, but tonight isn't about reopening old choices." "I didn't open anything," I said. "You came here prepared to be offended. I made the reservation. I mean, emotionally." Several people examined their plates. "Finish your toast," I said. He should have heard the warning. Dad smiled at me with sad patience. "You're the soldier who quit. Tonight is about your brother." A server arrived carrying creamed spinach, read the room, and retreated. "Cal," Mom said. Owen looked down. Not for long. 1 second, maybe 2. It was enough. I reached into my bag and took out my phone. "What are you doing?" Dad asked. I found the file dated 4 years earlier, the one I had copied from phone to phone, the one I had never played for Mom, Owen, Beth, or anyone else. Dad laughed. "What, are you calling somebody?" "No." I placed the phone beside his wine glass. Owen looked at me. "Mara." I pressed play. Dad's voice filled the room. "Mara, it's Dad. Listen, don't sign anything, please. Your mother needs you. I need you." The real Dad went still. The recorded one continued, crying too hard to hide it. "I know you've got plans, but I can't get her from the bed to the chair. She won't let the nurses help without fighting them. I can't keep it all straight." Mom covered her mouth with her left hand. "Don't call Owen about this. He's got too much happening, and his career has momentum. He can't do anything from over there anyway. You're the only one I trust to hold this together. You're my soldier, Mara. Come home." When the message ended, the fireplace clicked softly behind us. Dad reached for the phone. I moved it beyond his hand. "You asked me to leave," I said. "Then you punished me for answering." No one moved. Dad's recorded voice seemed to remain in the room after the phone went silent. I could hear the ventilation system, Uncle Ray breathing through his nose, and the tiny electrical clicks of the fake logs in the fireplace. Then Dad said, "You saved that?" Of all the possible first responses, it was so perfectly him that I almost laughed. "Yes." "For 4 years?" "Yes." He looked around the table, searching for a face that would reflect the correct outrage back at him. Most people suddenly found the table linens fascinating. I was terrified, he said. Your mother had just had a stroke. I know. I was there. That was a private moment. You just made my service a public one. I was emotional. I don't even remember saying half of that. I remember all of it. Owen leaned forward, elbows on the table. You told me she'd been thinking about getting out. Dad's eyes moved toward him. She was. No, I said. You had concerns. Everyone in the Army has concerns. That isn't the same as leaving. Owen's voice stayed quiet. You said she wanted a civilian life. Dad set down his wine glass. I was trying not to make your mother feel responsible. Mom removed her hand from her mouth. Don't, she said. Dad turned to her. Denise, you know what those weeks were like. I know. You wanted Mara home. I wanted help. Same thing. No. The word landed harder than the hand she had slapped against the table years earlier. Dad's face changed. You asked me to call her. I asked you to ask both. That's not what you said. I said children. You could barely speak. Mom's cheeks flushed. Could think. No one looked at Owen now. It was his dinner, his promotion, his photograph board, but the room had rearranged itself around a 4-year-old phone message. Uncle Ray cleared his throat. Maybe we should give them some privacy. Dad snapped. We are in a private room. I meant family privacy. Your family. Ray looked at his wife. Apparently, I chose a bad night to become specific. Under different circumstances, I might have smiled. People began standing. Chairs scraped. Owen's friends approached him one at a time, shook his hand, and congratulated him again with the grave expressions of people evacuating a damaged building. Mrs. Talbot touched my shoulder on her way past but didn't say anything. Dad's former business partner avoided all eye contact and took 2 dinner rolls with him. Lacey appeared at the door as though summoned by discomfort. Would anyone still like dessert? Mom said, yes. Every head turned toward her. I ordered chocolate cake, she said. I still want it. Lacey nodded with impressive professionalism. I'll bring it boxed. Dad's mouth tightened. We're leaving. You leave, Mom said. Cake stays. I handed Lacey my credit card before Dad could begin an argument about the bill. He had organized the dinner, but the restaurant had required the card of the person who made the reservation. Of course it had. You're not paying, Dad said. I already paid the deposit. I said I'd reimburse you. You also said I quit. Stop using that word like I invented it. You used it 10 minutes ago. You know what I meant. Owen stood so abruptly his chair struck the wall. Can everybody stop? He said. We did. He put both hands flat on the table. His new insignia caught the light. 1 minute. Just 1 minute without somebody telling me what I know, what I meant, what I should feel, or what tonight is supposed to be about. Dad opened his mouth. Owen looked at him. Dad closed it. Owen turned to me. Did you plan that? No. You've had the recording on your phone for 4 years. That wasn't my question, Dad said. Owen swung toward him. You don't get to help. Dad looked wounded. Owen faced me again. Did you come here planning to play it? No. Then why did you have it? I always have it. The answer sounded worse aloud. Owen stared at me. Why? Because it proved I hadn't imagined the choice. Because sometimes Dad told the story so confidently that I needed to hear his old voice and remember he had once known the truth. Because deleting it felt like signing a second separation document. I don't know, I said. That's not honest. It's the answer I have right now. He looked toward the door where his friends had disappeared. You could have told me before tonight. I tried years ago. You said it was complicated. Because Dad was standing beside Mom, and Mom already thought she'd ruined my life. And you had an evaluation, and everybody had a reason I should wait. So you waited until my promotion dinner? Your father called me a quitter. Our father. He didn't sound like mine. Owen flinched. I regretted the sentence as soon as it left me, but regret did not make it false. Dad stepped toward us. This is exactly what she wants, Owen. She wants you to feel guilty because people are proud of you. I turned to him. You cannot possibly still be talking. I'm not going to stand here while you poison your brother against me. You did that yourself. With a recording of a man whose wife might have been permanently disabled, whose daughter might have needed the truth, you came home voluntarily. Yes. No one held a gun to your head. Is that your standard for asking something of family? I asked for help. You made a decision, and you promised to remember why. I remember. You remember privately. In public, I'm weak. I was making a toast. You were making me smaller so he'd look taller. Owen's face tightened. I never asked him to do that. I know. Do you? Before I could answer, Lacey returned with Mom's cake in a white box tied with red string. Mom held out both hands for it. I'll take you home, Owen told her. Dad said, she came with Mara. I can drive my own mother. The brace catches in low cars. I rented an SUV. You don't know her routine. Owen looked at me. Is there anything I need to know? Her right leg stiffens after she sits too long. Give her a minute before she steps down. Don't pull her arm. I know. I'm telling you anyway. He nodded once. Mom picked up her cane. She moved slowly around the table, pausing beside me. Come tomorrow, she said. I have work. After. Dad heard. We'll all talk tomorrow once everybody's calm. Mom looked at him. Not you. He gave a humorless laugh. That's ridiculous. She tucked the cake box beneath her left arm and walked out with Owen. Dad watched them leave. Then he turned to me. Satisfied? No. You embarrassed your brother in front of his commanding officer. His commanding officer wasn't at dinner. His colleagues, then. You embarrassed him. I gave a toast about him. You gave a toast about yourself. His face went white around the mouth. I collected my phone and put it back in my bag. Don't walk away from me. I'm going home. This is what you do. The second things become uncomfortable. You leave. I stopped at the door. He knew what he was doing. We both did. 4 years earlier, I would have turned around and defended myself. I would have built the timeline, presented evidence, and worked until he admitted 2 + 2 was 4. That night, I only said, find another word. At my apartment, I removed my navy dress and hung it on the back of the bedroom door because I lacked the energy to open the closet. I sat on the edge of my bed in my slip, still wearing one shoe. My phone lit up with messages. Uncle Ray. I'm sorry, I should have shut him down sooner. Mrs. Talbot. I never knew. Your mother was lucky to have you. Beth. Survived? Owen sent nothing. Dad sent enough for everyone. He began with a family group message that included most of the dinner guests. I apologize that Owen's celebration was disrupted tonight. Mara has carried resentment about leaving the military and chose an unfortunate way to express it. The message she played was recorded during the worst week of our lives, without my knowledge that it would be saved and used publicly. I hope we can all keep the focus where it belongs and congratulate Owen on an extraordinary achievement. I read it twice. Then I typed, you called my voicemail. You knew it was recorded. I deleted that. I typed, I didn't disrupt the dinner. You called me a quitter. I deleted that too. Finally, I placed the phone face down. Beth called. I was asking rhetorically, she said when I answered. Your silence suggests no. He called me a quitter. Oh, at my brother's promotion dinner. Your father? Yes. The man whose medication spreadsheets you still color code? They're not his medications. That's worse. I told her I'd played the message. I expected surprise. Judgment, maybe. Beth asked, how loud? What? The phone? Could everyone hear? Yes, good. I laughed once, then started crying. Beth stayed quiet. I ruined Owen's night, I said. Sounds like your father ruined Owen's night. You brought audio? I picked the moment, after being called a quitter in front of 14 people. 13. One guest was in the restroom. You always were precise under pressure. I lay back on the bed. I kept it for 4 years. I'd have kept it too. Why? Because your family kept asking you to live in a version of events where it didn't exist. That was too accurate to be comforting. The next morning, Owen called at 6:12. I couldn't sleep, he said. I noticed. Mom's okay. She's still at the house. I assumed. Dad slept in the recliner. He does that when he wants people to discover his suffering. Owen didn't laugh. I listened to it again, he said. How? Dad made me send it to him, I said, before remembering that had never happened. What? I sat up. You have it? Uncle Ray recorded part of the dinner on his phone. He thought Dad's toast would be nice. Of course he had. Nothing vanished anymore. Not speeches, not mistakes, not a man's voice from 4 years earlier. I heard the part about my career, Owen said. Momentum. Yes. He used that exact word with me when he told me not to come home. I waited. He said you were already planning to separate. He said you'd volunteered to handle things. I didn't know that. Would it have changed anything? I don't know. He breathed out. Why didn't Mom tell me? You can ask her. I did. She started crying. That doesn't mean she can't answer. You sound angry at her. I am. She had a stroke, and then she had 4 years. He went quiet. I looked at Dad's group message again. Several relatives had added hearts beneath the sentence, congratulating Owen. Nobody had responded to the rest. Mara, Owen said, playing it last night was cruel. There it was. Yes. He seemed startled that I agreed. It was also true, I said. I know, both things can be true. I know that too. Do you? I'm trying. My phone showed another incoming call. Dad, I declined it. He's calling me, I said. He wants us all at the house tonight. Mom asked me to come. Not him. He says this has gone far enough. It went far enough 4 years ago. I expected Owen to defend him. Instead, he said, come anyway. Why? Because Mom wants to tell us what she remembers. At 5:30, I drove to my parents' house and parked at the curb instead of the driveway. Dad opened the door before I reached it. He had arranged 4 chairs in the living room. On the coffee table beside the brass bell, he had placed a yellow legal pad. He was planning to run the conversation like a meeting. Mom sat in her usual chair, holding the red string from the cake box wound tightly around her left hand. Owen stood behind her. Dad pointed at the empty chair across from him. Sit down, Mara. Mom looked at me. Then she looked at Dad. You, she said. Leave. Dad blinked. I'm sorry? Leave room. This is my house. Mom lifted the red string and pointed toward the kitchen. Then go stand in your kitchen. Owen looked down, but not before I saw his mouth twitch. Dad appealed to him. You think this is funny? No, you're smiling. I'm impressed. Dad picked up the yellow legal pad. I was trying to keep this conversation constructive. You wrote an agenda? I asked. It helps people stay on subject. What's the subject? He tucked the pad beneath his arm. Apparently, blaming me for everything. Mom rang the brass bell. The sound startled all of us. Dad stared at her. Out, she said. He went into the kitchen and shut the swinging door hard enough to rattle the framed photographs in the hallway. Mom unwound the string from her hand. It had left red grooves across her palm. I took the chair beside her instead of the one Dad had assigned me. Owen sat on the couch. For a moment, none of us spoke. Mom had wanted this meeting. Now that she had us, she studied the red string as if expecting it to tell the story for her. I remember hospital, she said. Her speech rarely caught anymore, but it did when she was tired or emotional. The pauses returned. Her right hand tightened slowly over the arm of the chair. Not all. Pieces. Cal asked who to call. I said both. Owen leaned forward. He told me you said not to worry me, he said. Mom shook her head. I said call both. He said you were busy. I said family. The kitchen faucet came on. Dad wanted us to know he wasn't listening while making it impossible to believe he wasn't. Mom looked at me. I remember you came. You made list on wall, green tape, the rehab schedule. You fought woman about shower. She wanted to send you home without a transfer bench. You were scary. She was wrong. Mom smiled briefly. Then it left. When you said, Army done, I thought temporary. So did Dad, I said. Or that's what he told me. I asked him. He said you were unhappy. Said maybe good time. My hands went cold. When did you ask? Rehab. Before home. Before Mrs. Talbot's casserole. Before Mom asked whether she had ruined my life and called me a liar. You knew before I moved back? I knew you leave, not why. But you suspected. She looked at her lap. Yes. Owen stood and walked to the window. He pulled the curtain aside without looking out. Why didn't you ask her? He said. Mom's shoulders rose. I was scared. So was she. I know. No, I don't think you did. Owen, I said. He turned. What? She's answering. I'm listening. You're prosecuting. You've had 4 years to be angry. So have you? He looked at me, then sat again. Mom did not thank me for defending her. That would have made it easier. She continued. I wanted you there, she said to me. I hated needing. Hated him helping. Dad wasn't helping. I know. From the kitchen came the unmistakable sound of a cabinet closing too hard. Mom spoke louder. You made safe. You knew medicine. You waited when I talk. You didn't look at me like broken. I did sometimes. No, I did. I just tried not to let you see. Good job. That almost broke me. She reached with her left hand and took mine. When I knew, she said, I should tell you go. I did later. Job. Apartment. You did. Not enough. What were you supposed to do? Throw me out? Yes. A laugh escaped me. I was relieved, she said, like Owen. Owen shut his eyes. You were there, so we didn't have to be brave. Cal didn't learn. I didn't make him. Owen didn't come. All because Mara handles. She said it without self-pity. That made it hurt differently. Owen rubbed both hands over his face. If I'd known, he said, I would have come home. Mom looked at him. He lowered his hands. I would have. For how long? The question was mine, but she had asked it. Owen glanced toward the photographs lining the mantel. I don't know, as long as I could. Then leave, Mom said. I had orders. So did she. The kitchen door opened. Dad stood there holding an empty water glass. That's enough. Mom turned. I said leave. I'm not going to hide in my own kitchen while you attack our son. No attack. You just implied he abandoned you. I told truth. The truth is, Owen was overseas serving his country. Mara had options. I stood. He looked at me. You did. You called and asked me not to use them. I asked for help during a medical emergency. I didn't forge your signature. No one said you did. You keep acting like I forced you out. I'm saying you spent 4 years pretending you never asked. I did not pretend. You told Owen I wanted civilian life. I was protecting your mother. Mom said no. Dad ignored her. You want somebody responsible for the fact that you made a decision you regret? He said. Fine, blame me. But don't rewrite yourself as a helpless victim. You were 34 years old. I know how old I was. You could have said no. Owen rose. Dad, stop. No. Everyone wants honesty. Here it is. Mara likes being needed. Always has. She came home because she wanted to be the person who saved us. Now she resents us for letting her. The words hit because a piece of them was true. I did like being useful. I trusted emergencies more than ordinary days because emergencies came with priorities. I knew who I was when someone needed a plan. Dad saw the hesitation and mistook it for surrender. You built your whole life around being indispensable, he said. That isn't my fault. No, I said, but it's about to become your problem. His expression shifted. I looked at Mom. Are you safe here? Yes. Do you need help, bathing or dressing? No. Can you manage your medications if they're sorted weekly? Yes. Dad laughed. What is this, an assessment? Yes. I continued. Transportation? Can drive short, Mom said. You are not driving, Dad interrupted. She's medically cleared. She hesitates at intersections. So do you. Owen made a sound that might have been a cough. I asked, Mom, do you want a paid care coordinator to handle appointments, insurance calls, and transportation backup? Dad stepped into the room. We're not paying a stranger to do what family does. Family isn't doing it. I am. We don't need some outsider. Mom said, I do. Dad turned to her. Denise, you don't even know what she's proposing. Yes. Not Mara. The sentence hurt even though I understood it. I nodded. I'll arrange a handover, I said. 30 days. Appointments, medications, contacts, transportation, insurance. After that, I'm not the default. Dad stared at me. You're punishing your mother. No, you're angry at me. So you're abandoning her. She just told you what she wants. Since when do you walk away because someone says they don't need you? Since you called me a quitter for staying. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Mom released my hand. 30 days, she said. Owen nodded. I'll split the cost. Dad looked at him as if he had changed sides in a war. Your money isn't necessary. Then pay half yourself. I can manage my own household. Great, I said. That will make the handover easy. It did not make the handover easy. Dad challenged every line of the plan. He objected to sharing contact information with a coordinator. He insisted Mom's medication system was overly complicated, then could not name 2 of the prescriptions. He said ride services were unreliable, while offering no alternative beyond me. Owen stayed through the following Wednesday. I took a day off work and walked him through the binder I had assembled. Medication list, appointment calendar, physician numbers, therapy history, equipment supplier, preferred pharmacy, transportation options, insurance information, and the list of home repairs Mom needed for safer mobility. He turned pages slowly. You've been maintaining this by yourself? Dad opens the mail. That wasn't an answer. You're learning. Dad stood at the kitchen counter making coffee with his back to us. I handled plenty before Mara came home, he said. Mom entered carrying her cane but not using it. Name neurologist. Dad poured coffee. She's seen several. 1. I know his name. Say. This is childish. Owen looked at the binder again. A care coordinator named Janelle Brooks came to the house that afternoon. She wore flat shoes, asked Mom questions directly, and did not look at Dad for permission when Mom answered. I liked her immediately. Dad did not. How many clients do you have? He asked. 14. So my wife is one of 14. Your wife is Denise, Janelle said. She'll be Denise every time I call. Mom smiled. Janelle explained that she would review the medication routine, confirm appointments, coordinate transportation when family was unavailable, and help Mom communicate with providers. She was not a nurse and would not replace medical care. Dad interrupted 6 times. On the 7th, Mom rang the bell. Janelle looked at it. What does that mean? It means Cal should stop talking, Mom said. Janelle wrote something on her pad. Dad glared at me as though I had trained both women. When Owen left, he hugged Mom, then Dad, then me in the driveway. I'll call Sunday, he said. Call Janelle, too. She'll send monthly updates if Mom agrees. Mom, standing on the porch, called, I agree. Owen nodded. He looked tired. The promotion insignia was packed away, and without the uniform, he was only my brother again. I'm sorry about the dinner, I said. So am I. That's not quite the same as forgiving me. No. Okay. He shifted his bag higher on his shoulder. I'm sorry I looked down. I knew exactly which moment he meant. Okay, I said again. I don't know why I did. Yes, you do. He looked toward Dad, who was pretending not to watch from the doorway. I didn't want to choose, Owen said. You did choose. I know. After he left, Dad waited until Mom went inside. You've made your point, he said. I'm not making a point. You got your brother involved. You brought a stranger into our house. How much longer are you going to drag this out? 29 days. He shook his head. Your mother will call you the first time something goes wrong. Maybe, and you'll come. There was confidence in his voice, not hope, ownership. The first test arrived 4 nights later. Dad called at 10:36. I was on my couch eating noodles from the carton. My body reacted before my mind did. Heart faster, feet on the floor, eyes searching for keys. I answered. "Your mother's prescription isn't here," he said. "Which one?" "The blood thinner. Did you check the basket on the counter?" "There's nothing. Janelle confirmed delivery this afternoon. Well, it's not here. I heard Mom in the background. It's in refrigerator," she called. Dad said. "Why would medicine be in the refrigerator?" "Because that refill has to stay cold," I said. "It's on the first page of the handover." A pause. "I haven't read every page. Read the first one. You could just come over and make sure." I looked at my keys on the table. No. What if it's the wrong medication? Read the label. Mari, Dad. "This is your mother's health." "Yes. So read the label." I waited until I heard the refrigerator open. "Found it," he muttered. "Good night." I hung up before he could invent the next emergency. For several minutes, I sat with my shoes half on and my noodles cooling beside me. Then I took the shoes off. For the first time in 4 years, my father had declared something urgent, and I had not gotten in the car. My noodles were inedible by then. I ate them anyway. The next morning, I called Mom before I got out of bed. She answered on the 4th ring. "Alive," she said. "Good morning to you, too. He found medicine. I heard. Read label 3 times. That's a solid start." There was a rustle, then the sound of a cupboard. She was making coffee. For years, the sound of her moving around without assistance had reassured me. That morning, it felt almost accusatory. She had been capable of more for longer than any of us had admitted. "Did you sleep?" I asked. "Yes. Any bruising? Dizziness?" "Mara, what? Stop." I pressed my lips together. "I'm learning," I said. "Slow. Runs in the family." She laughed. Dad said something in the background. Mom's voice cooled. "He says you hung up after he found the prescription. He survived." I was worried. No. Offended. She had become fluent again at inconvenient times. At work, I opened the scheduling board and stared at Tuesday's columns without seeing them. Beth passed my door twice. On the 3rd pass, she came in and sat across from me. "How'd the first no go? What makes you think there was a no? You've rearranged the same 3 magnets for 9 minutes. I told her about the prescription." "You solved it by phone," she said. "He solved it by opening a refrigerator. Even better." I almost went over, but you didn't. I still answered, one addiction at a time. "It isn't an addiction." Beth looked toward the board. I moved a blue strip to the correct column. "It's responsibility," I said. "Responsibility ends somewhere." "According to who?" "Usually the person benefiting from pretending it doesn't." I leaned back. What if something real happens? Then you respond to the real thing. How do I know which is real? You spent 11 years assessing risk. Dad has no respect for standard threat levels. You could assign him a color. He'd insist on gold because red clashes with the living room. Beth smiled, then tapped the edge of my desk. "You don't have to become unreachable to become unavailable for nonsense." That sounded reasonable. Reasonable things were dangerous because they gave me nothing to fight. Dad changed tactics after the prescription failed. He called relatives. Uncle Ray phoned me at lunch to say Dad was having a hard time with the transition. Mrs. Talbot sent a text asking whether Mom needed meals now that I was taking some space. A cousin I had not spoken to in 18 months messaged that parents were imperfect and regret was heavy to carry after they were gone. I answered Mrs. Talbot. "Mom can cook and has coordination support. Ask her what she wants before bringing food." She replied with a thumbs up and arrived the next day with banana bread anyway. Dad's family message came on Sunday morning. "Denise is doing well, though recent changes have required significant adjustment. I'm stepping up to handle more of her daily care and appreciate everyone's patience while we settle into our new routine." Owen responded before I could decide whether to throw my phone. Mom has managed most of her own personal care for over 2 years. Mara arranged professional coordination so Mom isn't dependent on either of us. This isn't a new crisis. The message sat beneath Dad's for 6 minutes. Then Uncle Ray added, "Good to hear Denise is doing so well." Dad removed himself from the group. Owen called me later. "I've always wanted to make a grown man leave a family text," he said. "He'll start another without us." He already did. Ray added me back. I smiled. Then Owen said, "Was that okay?" "What?" Responding. "You don't need clearance. I didn't want to speak for you. You spoke about what happened. I should have done it at dinner. You were blindsided. So were you." I had the file open. He went quiet for a moment. "I'm meeting Janelle by video Wednesday," he said. Mom approved. "That's good." I moved my standing staff call. I almost praised him. The urge was automatic and faintly insulting, like congratulating Dad for locating refrigerated medication. Instead, I said, "Put it on your calendar." "It is." He laughed a little. "You really don't trust me." "I trust systems. That hurts more." "Systems call when they're going to be late." I said I was sorry about Thursdays. You said your schedule changed. It did. Both things can be true. He sighed. I walked into that. Janelle did not allow Dad to turn helplessness into atmosphere. When he said the appointment calendar was too complicated, she replaced it with a larger one and made him enter the next 2 dates himself. When he claimed Mom's pharmacy would only speak to me, Janelle sat beside him while he called and updated the authorized contacts. When he told her Mom became confused under stress, Janelle asked Mom to explain the medication routine. Mom did it accurately. Dad began calling Janelle the consultant, always with an article in front of it. The consultant says we need a shower rail. The consultant wants a copy of the insurance card. The consultant thinks Denise should choose her own appointments. Janelle never corrected him. Mom did. "Janelle," she would say. During the second week, Dad surprised me. Mom's transportation canceled 20 minutes before a neurology appointment. Janelle was across town. I saw Dad's name on my phone and let it ring once before answering. "The ride didn't show," he said. "What time is the appointment?" 10:15. I looked at the clock. I can't get there. I know. I waited. "I'm taking her," he said. I put the folding cane in the car and brought the brace. "Do you have the questions for the doctor?" "First pocket of the binder. You read it?" "I know how to read, Mara. Evidence has been mixed." He was silent. "Drive carefully," I said. "We'll call afterward." They did. He had asked every question on the list, written the answers in his blocky capital letters, and scheduled the follow-up before leaving. Mom reported that he had driven too slowly and insulted 3 parking spaces before selecting one. "You handled it," I told him. "Of course I handled it." The old me would have argued about the "of course." I let him keep it. That night, I stood in my apartment kitchen with no immediate task. No forms waited on the counter. No meal needed preparing. Janelle had confirmed the next week's schedule. Owen had sent his portion of the coordination fee without being reminded. I opened a cabinet, closed it, and checked my phone. Nothing. The silence I had once paid rent to possess felt much larger than the apartment. I called Paula. She answered with, "Who died?" "No one." "Then why are you calling after 9? You respect bedtime like a religion. I set a boundary. Condolences. I thought you'd be proud." "I am. I also know you." I sat on the kitchen floor. Dad called me a quitter at Owen's promotion dinner. There was a pause. "Give me an address." "For what?" "I just want to talk." "You live in Texas. I have leave." I played the message. "The one from your dad?" "Yes." "All of it?" "In front of everyone." Paula made a low sound of approval. "Owen was hurt," I said. "Probably. Dad says I saved it as a weapon." "Did you?" "No." Then it became one in the field. "You make everything sound tactical." "You called me." I rested my head against the cabinet. "I don't know what to do when nobody needs me. That's a lie. You too? You know what to do. You don't know who to be." I stared at the dark rectangle of the oven door. "Is that supposed to help?" "No. I'm off duty." She stayed on the phone until I stood up. The 30 days ended with no ceremony. I met Janelle, Mom, and Dad at the dining room table. We reviewed the binder one final time. Dad corrected an outdated phone number before I could. Mom signed the consent, allowing Janelle to speak with Owen and me if there was a genuine medical concern. Dad refused to sign anything because, as he said 3 times, he was not a client. Janelle closed her folder. Going forward, Denise calls me for scheduling, transportation, insurance, or provider coordination. Cal can call as well, with Denise's permission. Emergencies go to 911. Family updates go through the group Denise approved. Dad looked at me. And if we need you, ask. We've always asked. No. You've announced. Mom nodded. Dad pushed his chair back. So now I need an appointment to speak to my daughter. You're speaking to me, for now. I stood and put on my jacket. He followed me to the front door. You'll regret making everything this formal, he said quietly. I made the handover clear. You made us clients. No, I stopped being staff. He glanced toward the dining room. Your mother is acting strong because she doesn't want you to leave. Maybe she is strong. You don't see her in the mornings. Janelle does. You trust a stranger over me. I trust what Mom says about herself. Dad's mouth tightened. You think this house runs because of a binder? No. I think it runs because Mom has recovered more than you let either of you believe. I left before he could answer. For the next week, Mom called me twice. The first time, she asked if I wanted to see a movie. The second, she asked whether I still had the number for the accessible apartment complex near the library. I sat up on my couch. Why? Want tour. Does Dad know? No. Mom. You said ask what I want. I did. I want tour. I took her on Saturday. The apartment had wide doorways, a walk-in shower, low kitchen cabinets, and an emergency pull cord Mom declared ugly. The living room window overlooked a row of crepe myrtles. The carpet was bland enough to satisfy Dad's standards, though no one asked him. Mom moved through the room slowly, touching countertops with her right hand. In the bedroom, she sat on the edge of the empty mattress platform. You want to leave him? I asked. She considered the question. Want leave house, she said. Maybe him. Don't know. That's a big difference. Yes. Did the dinner cause this? No. The handover? No. What did? She looked around the bare room. Got better, she said. Nobody noticed. I sat beside her. Outside, someone rolled a grocery cart along the walkway. A door opened. Laughter spilled out, then faded. Dad's going to blame me, I said. Mom nodded. He's going to say I put this idea in your head. Yes. You don't seem concerned. No. Why not? She took my hand. Your turn, she said. Let him be wrong. Mom applied for the apartment without me. She had Janelle help with the online form, requested her own medical letter for the accessibility requirement, and paid the holding fee from the checking account she shared with Dad. I learned this when she called to ask whether I owned a tape measure. You know, Dad owns 6, I said. His. You're married. That usually includes measuring devices. Need one without speech. I brought mine. She measured the bedroom wall, the living room window, and the distance between the shower bench and the towel bar. She wrote each number in a small notebook. Her handwriting had never fully recovered. The numbers leaned left, as if resisting wind. You sure? I asked. No, that's honest. Still doing. The apartment would be available in 3 weeks. She planned to tell Dad that evening, Do you want me there? No. Janelle. No. Owen on the phone? She looked at me. Why need audience? Dad performs better with one. Not performance. She was right. I left her at the house and drove to my apartment. Then I cleaned a kitchen that was already clean and checked my phone every 4 minutes. At 7:30, Dad called. What did you do? I sat at the counter. Be more specific. You took your mother to look at apartments. She asked me to drive. You filled out an application. No, don't lie to me. I'm not. She couldn't have done that herself. Janelle helped. Silence. The fact that Mom had acted without either of us unsettled him more than if I had orchestrated everything. She's not moving, he said. That's between you and her. She had a stroke 4 years ago. She is not capable of living alone. She can dress, cook, drive short distances, manage her medication, and call for help. What happens when she falls? What happens when you fall? That is not the same, because you're a man. Because I haven't had a brain injury. You left a $5 bill in a card reader for 10 minutes. I was under stress. So was her brain. He made an angry sound. I want you to tell her this is a bad idea. No, she listens to you. She asked me to let you be wrong. He hung up. Mom called 9 minutes later. He says you brainwashed me. I'm very efficient. He packed suitcase. Yours or his? His. Where's he going? Guest room. I laughed before I could stop myself. Mom did too. Then her voice softened. He cried. The laughter left. Are you okay? No. Do you want me to come over? A long pause. No. That was the first time either of us chose not to use me. Dad cycled through every possible response over the next 3 weeks. He announced that he would sell the house, then accused Mom of forcing him out of it. He said she would be back within a month. He said she had always hated the neighborhood. He showed her crime statistics for the area around the apartment, though the greatest reported danger appeared to be bicycle theft. He also made her coffee every morning. He repaired the loose latch on her jewelry box. He washed her car, checked the tire pressure, and replaced the battery without being asked. When she began sorting clothes, he folded each sweater with the care of a man handling evidence. Mom did not enjoy his suffering. That surprised me. I had expected the move to feel like revenge for her, too. Instead, she cried in the bathroom at my apartment because Dad had placed her blue cardigans in separate boxes labeled dark, medium, and wrong blue. He knows, she said. What? Which blue? I sat on the closed toilet lid while she wiped her face. Knowing isn't always the same as doing, I said. She gave me a look. I heard it after I said it. Stupid. Yes. The move happened on a Wednesday because that was when the movers were available. Owen took leave and arrived the night before. He rented a truck until I reminded him we had already hired movers. What's the truck for? I asked. Backup. You rented an emotional support vehicle. It has tie-downs. Dad refused to participate. At 8 in the morning, he sat at the kitchen table reading the newspaper while 2 movers carried boxes past him. Mom directed traffic from a dining chair. Kitchen apartment, she said, pointing with her cane. Blue label. One mover lifted a box. This one says, wrong blue. Bedroom. Owen stood in the hallway holding 3 lampshades and looking overwhelmed. Where do these go? On the lamps, I said. Which lamps? The ones missing shades. This is why nobody likes logistics people. This is why logistics people have jobs. Dad turned a newspaper page with unnecessary force. I had promised myself I would not run the move. Mom had hired professionals. Janelle had arranged the building access and confirmed the emergency contact system. Owen had volunteered for furniture assembly. My job was to drive Mom and carry her overnight bag. By 9:15, I was directing the movers. Mom caught me labeling a box that had already been labeled. Mara. I'm just clarifying. Stop. The bathroom supplies are mixed with stop. I set down the marker. One of the movers glanced between us. Should I take this? Yes, Mom and I said together. At the apartment, Owen assembled a small dining table backward. The finished edge faced the wall and the raw edge faced the room. It's rustic, he said. It's incorrect, I told him. Mom ran her fingers over the raw edge. Keep. You'll catch your sleeve. Memory. Of his incompetence? She nodded. We ate sandwiches on the crooked table. Mom had insisted on buying lunch. She also insisted on pouring drinks, moving slowly between the kitchen and table while all of us pretended not to watch. Dad did not come. At 4, when the movers had gone and the apartment looked inhabited but unsettled, someone knocked. Dad stood outside holding Mom's floor lamp. You forgot this, he said. Mom looked toward the corner where she had planned to place it. You said ugly. It is. He carried it inside. The lamp had a brass base shaped like vines and a shade with long fringe. It was objectively terrible. Dad set it beside her reading chair, plugged it in, and adjusted the shade until the fringe hung evenly. Owen found a reason to inspect the bedroom closet. I found one to take empty boxes to the recycling room. When I returned, Dad and Mom were standing by the door. "I'll call you," she said. "I know how phones work." "Do you?" He looked at her for a long moment. Then he leaned forward and kissed her forehead. On his way out, he stopped beside me. "You got what you wanted. I didn't want this. You wanted her to prove a point. She wanted a shower she could use without climbing over a tub. You couldn't wait to split us up. I spent 4 years holding your house together, and the second I stopped thanking you correctly, you tore it apart." Owen came into the hallway behind us. "Dad," he said. Dad looked at him. "You flew in for this. Don't pretend you're neutral. I flew in because Mom asked for help. So did I." The sentence silenced all three of us. Dad's face crumpled for half a second. He turned before Mom could see and walked toward the elevator. Owen started after him. "Don't," I said. "He shouldn't drive like this. He's been driving angry since 1987. That's not funny." "No." Owen pressed the elevator button anyway, but the doors had already closed. Mom's first night alone lasted until 1:16 in the morning. She called me. I answered in the dark. "Are you hurt?" "No." "Dizzy?" "No." "Did the emergency cord malfunction?" "Ugly, but works." "What happened?" Quiet. I sat up. Through the phone, I could hear the hum of her new refrigerator. "Do you want me to come over?" "Yes." The answer came quickly. I put my feet on the floor. Then she said, "No. Which one?" "Don't know." I waited. "Stay phone?" she asked. So I stayed. We talked about nothing. The lamp, the crooked table, a neighbor she had met near the mailboxes who wore too much perfume. At some point, Mom stopped answering. I listened until her breathing settled. The next morning, she called to complain that I had kept her awake. Within a month, she had a routine. Coffee beside the crepe myrtle window, water aerobics twice a week in the building's small pool, groceries delivered on Mondays, lunch with Mrs. Talbot on Fridays, and one dinner a week with Dad. Some dinners became 2. Others ended after 20 minutes. When relatives asked whether they were separated, Mom said, geographically. Dad lived alone in the house and discovered its habits. The refrigerator made a ticking sound he had blamed on Mom's hearing. The upstairs toilet ran unless the handle was lifted. Towels did not wash themselves, and unopened mail did not become paid bills through exposure to air. He called me twice about the cable company. I gave him the number twice. He called Owen about the property taxes. Owen told him which page of the binder to read. For the first time, Dad's helplessness had more than one possible audience, and none of us rushed to applaud it. I visited him once to return a toolbox he had left at Mom's apartment. The house smelled like toast. Dad was eating cereal at the kitchen counter, even though it was 6 in the evening. "There's chicken in the freezer," I said. "I'm aware. You said that cereal was bird food." "I've reconsidered." I placed the toolbox beside him. He looked older in the empty kitchen, not defeated, just unarranged. "Your mother likes the apartment?" he asked. "Yes. She tells me everything's wonderful. It isn't. The upstairs neighbor drags furniture at midnight, and the water pressure is weak." He nodded, oddly relieved. "She didn't have to leave," he said. "She wanted to. She could have told me sooner. She spent 4 years telling us things slowly." He stared into the cereal bowl. I wanted to wash it when he finished. I wanted to check the refrigerator, sort the mail, and make enough food for the week. Instead, I picked up my keys. "You leaving already?" "Yes." He did not ask me to stay. At work the next morning, Beth placed a red folder on my desk. "Don't answer immediately," she said. "I don't know the question. Regional Operations Director, 3 offices, travel for 6 months, relocation after that." I looked at the folder. The last person quit. The last person was promoted. How inconveniently positive. The office is still 90 miles east. Mom's apartment was 11 minutes from mine. Dad's house was 14. For years, those numbers had governed every decision before I admitted there was a decision. Beth tapped the folder. "You're allowed to say no." "I know. But this time, try saying it because you don't want the job." After she left, I opened the folder. The salary was better. The work was bigger. The start date was 8 weeks away. At the bottom of the first page, Beth had written in red ink, "Your life, your logistics. Figure it out." I left the folder open all day. Every time I passed my desk, the numbers waited. Salary, travel, relocation assistance, offices in 3 cities. A team large enough that no one person could hold the entire operation in her head, which meant I would have to build systems instead of becoming one. At 5:30, Beth stood in my doorway with her coat on. "You haven't said no. I'm growing." Painful, isn't it? What if I take it and hate it? Then you'll have made a bad career decision. Millions of civilians do it every year without forming a congressional committee. I'd have to move. Yes. My lease isn't up for 5 months. The company will cover the penalty. I'd need to find an apartment in a region containing apartments. I have furniture, known to survive trucks. I close the folder. You're enjoying this. Deeply. I need to think. Beth put on one glove. Interview is Monday. I already work here. Regional leadership doesn't. They want to meet you. What if I don't want to meet them? Then decline because you don't want the job. She pointed one gloved finger at me. Not because your father once failed to open a refrigerator. That weekend, I told no one. I went to the grocery store and bought food for one person without adding Dad's cereal or Mom's yogurt to the cart. I walked through my apartment and decided which furniture I would take if I moved. The crooked little end table Dad had repaired when I first moved in made the list. So did the doormat Owen sent me. On Sunday, Mom asked if I wanted to come for lunch. "What are you making?" "Soup." "Which kind?" "Yellow. I'll take my chances." Her apartment smelled like curry and lemon cleaner. The brass lamp was on despite the afternoon sun. She had added a red cushion to the reading chair and 3 potted herbs to the window, only one of which appeared dead. She handed me a bowl. I ate half before telling her. Beth offered me the regional job again. Mom blew on her soup. "Good, it's 90 miles away. When?" "I haven't accepted." "When decide?" "After the interview." She nodded and ate another spoonful. "That's it?" "What, you don't have questions? Want job?" "I think so." "Then questions done." "What about your appointments?" "Janelle." "What about groceries? Internet? What if something happens?" "Phone. That was your answer last time. Still good." I set down my spoon. "You could pretend you'll miss me. I will miss you. A little more distress would be nice." She reached across the table and took my hand. "Go," she said, "before he needs new cable package." I laughed. Then she added, "Before I ask you stay." That was the part that felt like love. The interview lasted an hour and 40 minutes. 3 people asked variations of how I handled competing priorities, limited resources, difficult personalities, and sudden changes in the field. I resisted saying I had spent 4 years living inside the question. Instead, I talked about capacity planning, escalation standards, and giving people enough authority to solve the problem in front of them. I talked about the difference between support and dependence. I talked about building handovers so an operation remains safe when the person who designed it left. Halfway through my answer, I saw Beth smiling at the end of the table. They offered me the job before I reached my car. I sat behind the wheel and read the email twice. The old response rose immediately. Call Dad, then Mom, then Owen. Explain the schedule. Make sure everybody can absorb it. Anticipate objections. Solve them before saying yes. I put the phone down. I accepted first. Owen answered my call with voices in the background. "Is this a bad time?" I asked. It's never a bad time when someone begins with that sentence. I took the regional job. He moved somewhere quieter. The one you turned down? A larger version. "Where?" I told him. "That's great. I have to move." I assumed regional meant a region. Mom said almost the same thing. Mom's getting funnier. She has fewer people interrupting her. He was silent for a beat. "When do you start?" 8 weeks. "I can come help you pack." You assembled Mom's table backward. "I've learned." "From what?" "Criticism." I smiled. Then Owen said, "Have you told Dad?" "No." "Are you going to?" "Yes." You want me there? No. Mom? No. You sure? I looked at the acceptance email. Yes. Dad was trimming the hedge when I arrived. One side was 6 inches lower than the other, but he kept attacking the taller side from above, which ensured they would never meet. He switched off the clippers. What's wrong? Nothing. You don't stop by without calling unless something's wrong. I accepted a job. You already have a job. A new one. Regional Operations Director. The clippers hung at his side. Where? 90 miles east. His face settled into a familiar arrangement. Hurt first, then dismissal before anyone could notice. So you're moving? Yes. Your mother know? Yes. Of course she does. I told her yesterday. And Owen? Today. I'm last. You're the only one counting. He set the clippers on the porch railing. When did you apply? I didn't. Beth offered it. The woman with the glasses. Yes. She always seemed eager to pull you away. You met her once for 7 minutes. She made a comment about boundaries. You asked her whether she planned to give me weekends off for family responsibilities. You had family responsibilities. I don't anymore. His mouth tightened. That's clear. I looked at the crooked hedge. I'm not asking permission. Then why are you here? To tell you myself. You could have sent a message. You like recordings. I almost left. He saw it and looked away. Congratulations, he said. The words sounded dragged over gravel. Thank you. When? 8 weeks. He nodded. I suppose this was always the plan. What was? Get your mother settled somewhere else. Get me trained to live without help and leave. You think I spent 4 years designing an escape that depended on Beth offering me a job twice? I think you've had 1 foot out the door since you came home. I declined this job because you said Mom would fall without me. And now she's living alone. She recovered. Thanks to us. Thanks to her. He picked up the clippers. I have to finish this. You're cutting the left side too low. I know what I'm doing. Okay. I walked toward my car. Behind me, the clippers did not restart. 5 days later, Dad texted, "Can we meet somewhere neutral?" I sent him the address of a diner halfway between his house and my apartment. He replied, "Not that place." It was the diner where he had once accused a waitress of hiding the rye bread. I sent back, "It's neutral." He arrived 12 minutes early and selected a booth near the window. When I sat down, a cup of coffee was already waiting on my side. 2 creams, he said. I drank mine black. You used to take cream in high school. He looked toward the counter. I can get another. It's fine. No, it isn't. He raised his hand before I could stop him and ordered fresh coffee. When it came, he moved the first cup to his side and drank from both. For several minutes, we discussed the weather like people awaiting legal counsel. Finally, he placed both hands around 1 cup. I listened to the message. I looked at him. Owen sent it. Uncle Ray's version? Yes. The recording Uncle Ray captured began after mine, so Dad had heard himself at dinner before hearing his old voice. How did that go? I asked. Poorly. He rubbed his thumb along the handle. I sounded cruel. You were cruel. I was trying to honor your brother. You keep saying that like honor requires a body under it. I didn't prepare those words. You practiced the toast for 2 weeks. Not that line. Did it surprise you? He looked out the window. No. The answer mattered. A waitress approached. Dad ordered apple pie. I said I didn't want anything. He ordered 2 forks anyway. I was proud of you, he said after she left. When? Always. That can't be your opening argument. I'm not arguing. You brought exhibits in coffee cups. He pushed one away. I didn't know what I was doing after your mother's stroke, he said. Everybody kept asking me questions. What medication, what facility, what she could do at home. I had no answers. You could have learned. I know that now. I learned in the same amount of time. You were better at it. You made that an excuse. Yes. The simple agreement left me nowhere to push. The pie arrived warm with ice cream melting down one side. Dad slid it between us. Neither of us picked up a fork. I called you because I knew you would come, he said. I didn't call Owen because I didn't know if he would. That's not what you said. I said his career had momentum. Yes, that was true. It was also useful. Useful how? It made my choice sound noble. Your choice? He winced. The choice about who to ask, he said. You asked both of us for what you thought we'd give. You asked Owen to keep going. You asked me to stop. I know. Do you? His eyes reddened. He blinked hard and looked down at the pie. I was scared, he said, and I made your life expendable because I knew you would come. The diner continued around us. Silverware, an order bell, someone laughing near the register. No one stood. No one saluted. My father looked like an aging man in a booth with 2 coffees he didn't want. He continued, Then you came home and knew how to do everything. Your mother listened to you. The therapists listened to you. I felt useless in my own house, so you called me a quitter. Not then. You started then. He nodded. If you left because we needed you, he said, then every time I looked at you, I had to know what I couldn't do. If you left because you were done with the army, then I was just your father helping you through a change. You weren't helping me. I know. The words had improved. I still did not trust them. Why now? I asked. Because I'm moving? Because everybody else did. It was such a dad answer that I picked up the second fork. Mom had left the house. Owen had stopped accepting his version of events. I had stopped answering announcements disguised as emergencies. Only then had truth become less painful than the lie. I took a bite of pie. Playing the message was meant to hurt you, I said. He looked up. I didn't plan it, but when I pressed play, part of me wanted you to feel what I felt. Did it work? Yes. He nodded once. Good. I didn't say it was good. No, I did. We ate in silence. When the plate was empty, Dad folded the paper napkin into smaller and smaller squares. Can you forgive me? He asked. Not because you asked correctly once. His face tightened, but he didn't argue. What do I do? You correct the story. I just apologized. To me. Privately. Again. He understood. You want me to send some humiliating message to everyone? I want you to tell the same people who heard your lie that it was a lie. That was family business. You made it dinner entertainment. He stared at the tiny folded napkin. What exactly am I supposed to say? The truth. You asked me not to re-enlist. You protected Owen's career by spending mine. Then you told people I quit because you didn't want them to know you needed me. I'm not putting it like that. Then use your own words, but use the word asked. Use my name. Don't say circumstances changed or everyone sacrificed. He looked almost offended. You've drafted it in your head. For 4 years. The waitress brought the check. Dad reached for it. I invited you, he said. You asked to meet. I'm paying. I let him. Outside, we stood beside our cars. Are you deleting the message? He asked. No. Ever? I don't know. He nodded, disappointed but not surprised. I am proud of you, he said. You don't get to use that as a shortcut either. Then what can I say? Congratulations worked. He looked at the pavement. Congratulations, Mara. Thank you. I drove home without knowing whether he would correct anything. The message arrived the next afternoon in a new family group that included everyone from the dinner except Owen's colleagues. At Owen's promotion dinner, I called Mara a quitter. That was untrue. After Denise's stroke, I asked Mara not to re-enlist and to come home because I was overwhelmed and needed her help. She gave up a career she intended to continue. I later minimized what she had done and allowed people, including Owen, to believe leaving had been her plan. It was not. I am sorry. No mention of fear, no explanation of intent, no request that anyone understand his side. Just facts. Uncle Ray responded first. Thank you for saying it plainly. Mom added a red heart, removed it, then wrote, correct. Owen called me. Did you write that for him? No. He used punctuation. He contains multitudes. You okay? I read Dad's message again. No, I said. Then, Because facts had started mattering in our family, I added, but I think I will be. Dad's message did not repair anything overnight. It did, however, ruin several people's preferred responses. Mrs. Talbot could no longer say I had been ready for a change. Uncle Ray stopped referring to my early retirement, which had always made it sound as though I owned a sailboat. A cousin sent me a 3-paragraph apology that included the phrase, family narratives, suggesting she had recently discovered therapy. Others said nothing. That was useful too. Dad did not add explanations to the group. He did not ask me whether his correction was sufficient. For 6 days he didn't contact me at all. On the 7th, he called while I was packing books. He began. I waited. He stopped himself. Are you busy? Yes, I can call later. What do you need? The internet company sent a new router. I wanted to ask whether you knew if I had to return the old one. The box itself probably contained the answer. I don't know, I said. All right. You can ask them. I will. He remained on the line. Anything else? How's packing? Slow. You always pack too many books. They're my books. I know. The phrase landed differently when he didn't add an instruction after it. I have boxes, he said, if you want them. What size? Mixed. Clean? Mostly. Mostly isn't a box condition. I'll check. Okay. He brought 12 clean boxes to my apartment the next morning. He left them outside the door because I was at work. Each one had been flattened and tied with twine. On top, he placed a roll of packing tape and a black marker. No note. Beth made me spend my final weeks documenting everything I had built. You're enjoying this, I told her. Deeply. She sat across from me while I explained the coverage model, the escalation levels, and why the scheduling board used colors in a particular order. What happens if you leave and nobody can understand it? She asked. They call me. Wrong. They ask you. Worse. They read the procedures. Correct. I handed her the manual. She flipped through it. 112 pages. There's an index. There are appendices. You said complete. I've created a monster. You hired me. Francine took over daily scheduling. On our first handoff morning, 2 aides called out. A storm closed the northern road, and the printer ate a referral. She stood before the board with one hand on her hip. You planned this. I control weather now. It's part of regional leadership. Can you control printers? No authority is that great. I stayed close enough to answer questions but did not reach for the magnets. Francine reassigned the visits differently than I would have. Her plan still worked. That was harder to watch than failure. At lunch, she placed the Chaos Coordinator mug on my desk. You forgot this. It belonged to the previous employee. It belongs to the desk. She replaced it with a new mug that said, someone else's problem. Beth bought that, she said. Obviously. I took it with me. Packing the apartment revealed how thoroughly I had confused possession with preparation. I owned 23 batteries in 4 sizes, 3 unopened bottles of ibuprofen, and enough zip ties to restrain the furniture. Owen arrived on a Thursday night carrying a label maker. You brought equipment, I said. I respect the mission. You rented another truck? No. I listened. He held up his flight information as if it proved maturity. Mom came Friday with sandwiches, a folding chair, and instructions not to let her lift anything. She immediately tried to carry a box of dishes. Dad arrived an hour later. No one had invited him directly. Mom had mentioned the date during one of their dinners, and he had asked whether help was needed. She had told him to ask me. He stood in the doorway wearing work gloves. I can leave, he said. Owen looked at me. Mom looked at a sandwich. I stepped aside. Books are in the bedroom. Dad nodded and went there. For most of the day, we worked without discussing why all 4 of us were capable of occupying one room again. Owen labeled boxes with excessive specificity. Mom crossed out his labels and replaced them with words she preferred. Kitchen, serving utensils became big spoons. Dad carried books. I packed my uniforms last. They had remained at the back of the closet in the same garment bags he once suggested I donate. When I pulled the first one out, dust streaked the plastic shoulder. Dad stopped beside me. "You keeping those?" "Yes." "Okay." I unzipped the bag. The uniform smelled faintly of plastic and the cedar blocks I had added years earlier. The name tape seemed to belong to somebody close to me, rather than to me. Dad touched one sleeve, then withdrew his hand. "This was the one from the Christmas picture," he said. I looked at the ribbons. "Yes." "The picture your mother wanted on the board." "Yes." He sat on the edge of the bed. "I should have used it. It wouldn't have fixed the toast." "I know." Owen appeared in the doorway holding the label maker. He saw the uniform and went still. "We have a photo of both of us in that one," he said. "I've heard. You want me to pack it?" "No." I folded it myself. Not with reverence, not like a flag. It was clothing I had worn during a life I could not recover. It carried sweat stains, repair threads, and a name that was still mine. I placed it in a wardrobe box beside the navy dress. Dad closed the flaps but did not tape them until I nodded. By late afternoon, only furniture remained. Mom sat in the folding chair eating the last sandwich. Owen lay flat on the floor trying to retrieve a screw that had rolled beneath the radiator. Dad stood at the window. "You'll have a guest room at the new place?" he asked. "No." "Oh." "There's a pull-out couch." I wasn't inviting myself. I didn't say you were. He watched a moving truck pass outside. "I'd like to visit," he said. The old dad would have announced the date. "Ask me after I settle in." "All right." Mom crumpled her sandwich wrapper. "Can visit me. I already visit you." More. Dad looked at her. "Is that an invitation? Ask after I check calendar." Owen laughed from under the radiator. "The apartment move took one truck, 6 hours, and no emergency. I relocated first, then traveled back for my final days at the office. My new apartment was smaller but brighter, with a balcony facing a line of oak trees. The first night, I ate takeout on the floor between boxes. Nobody called. I checked my phone twice. Then I turned it off. At the new job, 3 offices disagreed about nearly everything. One used different scheduling software. Another had no formal supply process because a woman named Lydia remembered what everyone needed. The third had built its intake system around a spreadsheet no one admitted creating. I spent my first week listening. That surprised people who knew I had been hired to change things. It surprised me too. On Friday, Lydia asked when I planned to replace her memory with a database. "When you help me build one that doesn't make your job worse," I said. She narrowed her eyes. "You military? Former Army. I knew it. Why?" "You stand like the copier might disobey." The work was difficult in the clean way I had missed. Problems belonged to the job. They could be studied, assigned, measured, and left in the office without endangering anyone I loved. I still worried about Mom. The difference was that I called to speak with her, not to inspect her. She joined a committee at the apartment complex and became unpopular with management over the pool temperature. She drove herself to the library. She and Dad continued their dinners, sometimes at her apartment, sometimes at the house. They had not defined the marriage. Mom said definitions were too much paperwork. Owen kept his Sunday calls more often than not. When he missed one, he contacted Mom himself instead of sending me an explanation. Dad learned to ask. Not every time. Once he texted that Mom's building was mishandling her maintenance request and I needed to call them. I replied with Janelle's number. He wrote, "Right." No accusation followed. 2 days before my official start as regional director, Dad left me a voice message. For several minutes, I watched the notification without opening it. Then I pressed play. "Mara, it's Dad. Nothing's wrong." He paused, apparently realizing that sounded like something was wrong. "I just wanted to say I hope the first day goes well. Your mother says not to call too early, so I'm calling now. You don't have to call back." Another pause. "I'm proud of you. I know I'm not supposed to use that as a shortcut. I'm not trying to. Congratulations." The message ended. I did not save a separate copy. I also did not delete it. Our going away dinner happened after I had already gone. Scheduling had failed us all, which felt appropriately human. I drove back on a Saturday. Mom hosted in her apartment and ordered takeout from an Italian place because, as she said, nobody needed Cal cooking for reconciliation. The crooked table was too small for the containers. Dad placed 2 dishes on the kitchen counter and served everyone without being asked. Owen opened wine. Mom lit the brass floor lamp even though it was still bright outside. We did not talk about the promotion dinner. We talked about my new office, Owen's meetings, Mom's pool temperature campaign, and Dad's discovery that the old router did, in fact, need to be returned. They charged me $130, he said. The instructions were in the box, I told him. I found them later. Growth, Owen said. Dad pointed his fork at him. You assembled this table backward. Mom likes it. Mom ran one finger along the rough edge. Memory. When the food was gone, Owen stood and lifted his glass. Dad looked at me, then deliberately remained seated. Owen cleared his throat. I had a whole speech. No, Mom said. He smiled. Exactly. He looked at me. I knew the face he wore in ceremonies. This was not it. He was only my younger brother trying to say one true thing without decorating it. To Mara, he said, whose life belongs to her. We raised our glasses. Dad's phone began ringing on the counter. He glanced toward it. Then by instinct, he looked at me. The old request passed between us without words. Check it. Answer it. Decide whether it matters. Hold everything together. I met his eyes. He turned the phone face down. It kept ringing. Mom asked me about the oak trees outside my balcony. Owen interrupted to claim I had exaggerated their size. Dad sat back down and poured himself more wine. The phone rang until it stopped. I stayed in the conversation.